Chapter 1437. Well, as the saying went, Death's left hand was very grateful to Wang Yu for taking the skill, so he was not very confident in speaking at this time. However, Death's right hand was unhappy. The first item was taken by Brother Chun. You mean this? Chun Xiang took out the Book of Life and said, I took this thing because you guys didn't want it. Do you want it? If you want it, I'll give it to you. As he said this, Chun Xiang was about to put the Book of Life into Death's right hand's hand. No, no. Death's right hand was so scared that he retreated. See. Chun Xiang spread his hands and said, I gave you a chance, but you didn't take it, this. Death's left hand looked at his brothers and then at the Chuanjian people. He was immediately in a difficult position. The problem he faced now was exactly the same as Wang Yu. The only difference was that it did not matter if Wang Yu forcefully took the equipment. After all, Chuanjian walked the path of shamelessness. Wang Yu also had the ability to take things in front of professional players. Underworld was different. Professional players all cared about face. Besides, the equipment was in Wang Yu's hands. If Wang Yu really wanted to take it, no one could do anything. How about this? Death's left hand thought for a while, pulled Death's right hand and Shurafine to the side, pointed to Hades and Shura, and said, Let's each take a step back and let these two roll with you. Puh. When Wuji heard this, he immediately snapped his fingers and said, Boss left hand is really generous. We'll do as you say. In fact, to be reasonable, fighting a boss and splitting the items was to take what they needed. Just because you used something that others did not need, it did not count as a share after taking it. Chun Xiang and Death's left hand each took what they needed. It was reasonable for everyone to let everyone roll for the third equipment. To be able to force the other side to roll for 2 fewer people, Chuanjian was already acting shamelessly. Naturally, Wuji would not go overboard and ask Death's left hand to give up the armor. The 2 people on each side resigned themselves to fate. This way, even if the equipment was taken by the people from Underworld, the Chuanjian people could not say anything. Alright. Since the Death God's left hand said this, the Underworld King couldn't object. Hades reluctantly said, You guys roll first. Bullshit. Mingdu curled his lips and said, Second bro, don't listen to him. Haven't you read online novels? The first to roll is the first to die, understand? Let him roll first. I'll go first then. Hades rolled his eyes at Mingdu, took out his die and threw it on the ground. 27, F***CK. Hades sighed gloomily. Ah, do you see that? Mingdu pointed at Hades' dice and smiled proudly while holding his stomach. I said that the first to roll dies. It's your turn. As he said that, Mingdu pointed at Shura again. Shura took out the die with a solemn expression and threw it on the ground after praying. 28, fuck. Everyone from the Netherworld King realm collapsed. These two were truly brothers in the same boat. Ha ha ha. Mingdu was laughing so hard that he couldn't breathe. Wuji held back his laughter and said, Do we still need to throw it? The highest the die could be thrown was 100 points. 28 was already an extremely low number. Even if it was casually thrown, there was a high chance that it would exceed this number. Before Hades and Shura could say anything, Mingdu jumped up and down and shouted, Throw it! Let them be convinced of their defeat. Makes sense. Bao San nodded and threw his die on the ground with a smile. Then, the smile on Bao San's face gradually froze. 26. How is this possible? Looking at the number on the ground, Bao San was a little dumbfounded. Puff! Everyone from Chuanjian spat out a mouthful of blood when they saw this. F***CK, a die with 100 points, and he threw exactly 26. Could Bao San's luck be any worse? Second bro, you throw. Bao San, who was possessed by the god of misfortune, angrily raised his chin at Yin Lao Air. Yin Lao Air frowned. He gathered his chi in his dantian, raised his hand, and the die flew out. 28, a huge number appeared in front of everyone. He had actually thrown the same number as Shura. However, because Shura had thrown it first, the equipment was judged to be in Shura's hands. The most painful thing in the world was to have the same result as you, but you got first place because you handed in your paper first. Seeing the equipment that he liked being taken away in such a way, Yin Lao Er's face was full of indignation and annoyance. Yin Lao Er broke down and scratched his head. He said angrily, "Who the F***ck told me to throw it back just now?" Ugh! Looking at the crazy Yin Lao Er, everyone's gaze fell on Mingdu. Plop! Mingdu immediately knelt in front of Yin Lao Er and repented, "Second master. I was wrong. Please be magnanimous." Yin Lao Er, sigh. Yin Lao Er shook his head and sighed. He waved his hand at Mingdu. It was just a piece of equipment. Now it was gone. Would Mingdu give it to me if I killed him? Yin Lao Er had a good temper. If it were other people in Xuanzhen, they would have to kill Mingdu several times to vent their anger. Ha ha ha! Shura was in a good mood after rolling the equipment. He comforted Yin Lao Er with a proud face. "Second brother, if you bet, you must be willing to lose. If we encounter better equipment later, we won't roll anymore. We'll give it to you directly." Did you see that? This was a typical case of taking advantage of others. It was easier said than done. Exquisite equipment was not easy to come by, especially a super exquisite equipment like the glory of the hellish lava. You might not even find one in 100 instance dungeons, let alone something even better. Why didn't you just give me a godly equipment instead? However, everyone was a person who cared about face. Even if they lost, they had to be decent. In response to Shura's sarcasm, Yin Lao Er forced a smile and said, "Okay, this is what you said. You can't go back on your word. Of course, we of the Underworld King Realm are people who care about face." Shura, this narrow-minded person, secretly mocked Wuji. Tch. Wuji's nose slanted and he ignored Shura's mockery. If a boss could drop one best equipment, it would be considered a mission accomplished. The equipment and items that they looted were indeed very similar to Wang Yu's style. They were all strange items with unknown functions. Wang Yu packed them up and threw them to Mingjian Daoxue, asking him to sell them in the market for money. After looting the equipment, everyone continued to move forward. After passing through the courtyard, everyone entered a narrow corridor. After walking along the corridor for about 3 minutes, everyone suddenly saw an open space in front of them. The entire open space was surrounded by hot magma. Rather than saying it was an open space, it was better to say that it was a piece of ore solidified by magma. Even the cracks on the scorched black ground had crimson magma flowing. In front of everyone, a group of crimson twin-headed hounds were walking back and forth. Flaming twin-headed hound, LV65, Elite, HP, 500000 MP, 50,000 skills, Flame Spray, Flaming Heavy Claw Talent, Flame Bath. Chapter 1438. In terms of attributes, the two-headed flaming hounds were average. There were only 20 to 30 of them compared to the Flame Elf. Although they looked ferocious, they were nothing to experts like Wang Yu and the others. Compared to the Flame Elves, they were much less threatening. After all, the Flame Elves had high attack power after going berserk. There were many of them, and they could self-destruct. It was quite a headache to deal with them. Attack! After seeing the attributes of the two-headed flaming hounds, Wuji looked around and gave an order to the archer behind him. The Grim Reaper's left hand had been prepared for a long time. After receiving the order, he immediately drew his bow and shot an arrow. Bang! With a loud noise, the two-headed flaming hound that was closest to everyone was nailed to the ground by the Grim Reaper's left hand's arrow. The arrow shook slightly, and the powerful impact hit the two-headed flaming hound's head, causing sparks to fly. Seeing that their companion was attacked, all the two-headed flaming hounds were slightly stunned. 3 exclamation marks appeared above their heads, and they immediately pounced toward everyone with a furious roar. "Hold on!" Wuji ordered calmly. After receiving the order, Yin Lao Air and Shura raised their shields at the same time, lowered their bodies, and charged at the two-headed flaming hounds that were pouncing toward them. Warriors and paladins were the representatives of strength-based professions. Both the shield warrior's charge and the paladin's charge were skills with extremely high priority. Moreover, both Yin Lao Air and Shura were experts with top-notch equipment and skills. Even though the two-headed flaming hounds had a 10-level suppression, they could only be defeated by the two of them. Bang! 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 With a heavy collision sound, the two-headed flaming hound that was charging at the front collided with Yin Lao Air's shield. With a grunt, the two-headed flaming hound was smashed into a ball and fell to the ground. Holy light protection. After hitting the target, Shura did not stop at all. He raised his light shield, and a milky white holy light enveloped Yin Lao Air and himself. Instantly, both of their defense attributes increased greatly. At the same time, Yin Lao Air pointed his middle finger at the two-headed flaming hounds and shouted, "Bastards, where do you think you're going?" The two-headed blazing hounds around Yin Lao Air were involuntarily pulled towards Yin Lao Air. Monsters were different from players. When players were taunted, their first reaction was to quick recover and retreat. When the monster was taunted, it was a form of genuine hatred. Pfft! The two-headed flame hounds that were dragged to Yin Lao Air's front spat out raging flames at Yin Lao Air and Shura. "Pa!" Seeing this, the two of them immediately squatted on the ground and raised the shields in their hands at the same time. The two shields faced each other. The tower shield of a tank class covered a very large area, at least 2.5 meters horizontally. With the two shields added together, it would be a 5-meter wall. The flames of the two-headed flaming hound bounced off the shield. At this time, Rakshasa had finished chanting his spell. He tapped his staff on the ground and shouted, "Frost path! Extend!" Swish! A path of ice spread from the tip of the staff. In the blink of an eye, it had spread to the feet of the two-headed flame hounds. Ice-type magic had a strong effect on fire-type monsters. Rakshasa's magic could even control a boss, let alone these small monsters. Instantly, the red bodies of the two-headed flame hounds were covered in a layer of pale blue frost. At this time, Mingdu made a hand seal with his left hand and raised his staff with his right hand. He shouted, "Thunder God, help me! Mighty thunder!" Swish! In an instant, streaks of lightning struck the bodies of the two-headed flame hounds like dancing golden snake. Mighty thunder was one of the ultimate skills of thunder magicians. Although its attack power and attack range were not as good as the awakened skill, Thunderstorm, it focused on the frequency of the attack. Everyone knew that water conducted electricity. The setting of Rebirth also supported combo skills. Therefore, Mingdu's thunder magic had an additional effect on frozen monsters. The two of them used two skills, and a huge critical damage floated above the heads of all the two-headed flame hounds. 200000. The two-headed flame hounds only had 500,000 HP. After one round of fighting, the HP bar on their heads had dropped by a large chunk. Awoo, awoo. The two-headed flame hounds howled in pain, as if they were complaining about the behavior of the two magicians. At the same time, they tried to escape in all directions. However, they had already been slowed by Rakshasa's frost path. They could not escape from Mingdu's magic range for a while. Stay! Before the two-headed flame hounds could escape, Chun Xiang had already activated his dark barrier. A black circle appeared on the ground of the two-headed flame hound. The dark barrier surrounded all the two-headed hellhounds from bottom to top. The three magicians were in the limelight, and the others did not want to be outdone. Shadow Chain Kick. Rising Dragon Break. Yama's instant hellish kill. Ha! Bite them all! The group of experts did not find it embarrassing to bully the dogs. They attacked the two-headed flame hounds in the circle together, causing them to howl in pain. In less than a minute, they were completely wiped out. When Mingdu and Rakshasa saw their defeated monsters being killed by others, they slapped their thighs and cursed, F***ck. A bunch of shameless people trying to steal my kills. It could not be helped. In terms of damage, melee classes could not compare to magicians. However, in terms of stealing kills, magicians were not as easy to control as melee classes. Ha ha ha! The people who were stealing kills were not ashamed. Instead, they said proudly, "Are you unhappy? I killed the monsters with my own abilities. How can you accuse me of stealing kills?" F***ck. Mingdu held his staff angrily. He wanted to kill these shameless people with a bolt of lightning. Just when everyone was joking around, a two-headed flame hound suddenly jumped up as if it had a terminal lucidity. It turned around and ran in the opposite direction. The others did not expect there to be a dog that had fallen into the trap. Trying to run? The Grim Reaper's left hand took out an arrow and knocked it on his bow. Whoosh! Before the Grim Reaper's left hand could pull the bowstring, an arrow flew past the Grim Reaper's left hand's cheek and pierced the back of the two-headed flame hound's neck. The two-headed flame hound whimpered and was killed by the arrow. Death's left hand hurriedly turned his head and saw Yang Na raising her crossbow and aiming it at him. The crossbow's arrow gleamed coldly, scaring Death's left hand into a cold sweat. He said in panic, What do you want?" "And nothing." Wuji quickly pulled Yang Na aside and said, "Sister Qingxue, you have to control yourself. If you want to kill him, you have to wait until the dungeon is over." Chapter 1439. Humph! Yang Na snorted coldly and turned her head away. Her actions confused Grim Reaper's left hand. He could not help but ask in the team chat, "Did I offend this girl?" "No way, boss. Did you forget?" The others from Underworld were shocked. "What do you mean?" Grim Reaper's left hand was even more puzzled. "During the Pro League," Hades reminded. "Didn't you beat her up before? She said she remembered you." "Damn. No way. Is this girl that scary?" Hearing Hades' words, Grim Reaper's left hand felt a chill on the back of his head. He suddenly remembered the Pro League not long ago. Indeed, he was a bit too vicious at that time, causing the girl to fall to her death. But that was a competition. Wasn't it supposed to be a fight to the death? Besides, it had been so long since the incident. She was still holding a grudge. This girl was too scary. "Of course, boss, you haven't been in a relationship before, so you wouldn't know." Hades shook his head and sighed. "Oh, you've been in a relationship before?" The others from Underworld asked Hades in surprise. "No." Hades shook his head. "I only had this thought, trash." Everyone gave him the middle finger. Only Grim Reaper's left hand gave Yang Na a meaningful look. He wanted to say something but hesitated. Yang Na and Exquisite Dream were asking Wuji in the channel, "Will he give us the equipment if we do this?" "Of course." Wuji smirked. "He's not stupid. If you guys want something for archers, he will definitely give it up unconditionally." Everyone had witnessed the strength of the Death God's left hand. Ever since they entered the dungeon, he had been suppressing everyone with his skills. Be it in terms of damage output or crowd control, he had completely suppressed the Chuanjin players. Other than Wang Yu, no one else was more eye-catching than him. This bastard, his giant bow was like a mortar. Yang Na and Exquisite Dream, who were also archers, stood next to Grim Reaper's left hand. It was as if they didn't exist. Death God's left hand might have already obtained a skill, but if he were to obtain an item for an archer, with the eye-catching performance of Death God's left hand, it would definitely not fall into Yang Na's hands. Even though they had agreed to distribute the loot according to class before entering the dungeon, there had to be a standard for judging between people of the same class, right? If they insisted on lying through their teeth and forcefully gave the loot to Yang Na and Yi Zichen, wouldn't that make Xuanzhen Sec seem shameless? Chuanjin definitely didn't want to lose face, but he still had to put on a show. Otherwise, it would be obvious that he was bullying them. Therefore, Wuji came up with this trick of self-injury. Yang Na played the bad cop and Wuji played the good cop. The Grim Reaper's left hand had personally experienced Yang Na's abilities. Although Yang Na's limelight had been suppressed and she was once defeated by the Grim Reaper's left hand, the Grim Reaper's left hand was well aware of how difficult it was for Yang Na to give birth. If she hadn't been careless and fallen into his trap, it would have been hard to tell who would have won. Arguing with a woman wasn't something a man should do. Moreover, it was an expert like Yang Na. If Yang Na really targeted him, he would have to work with Blood Alliance in Underworld King's world in the future. He wouldn't be able to live a good life if he kept meeting her all the time. As for what to do, Death God's left hand naturally knew. In front of a woman, a man's desire to live was an instinctive reaction. Everyone in Chuanjin was a quick-witted person. How could they not understand Wuji and Yang Na's intentions? F***ck. Seeing the conversation between the three, everyone in Chuanjin was speechless. Wuji, you really are a dog. Wuji smiled and said, as the leader of a guild, it is my duty to seek benefits for the guild brothers. Don't praise me. The drop rate of a hidden dungeon was much higher than a normal dungeon. Although these flaming twin-headed hounds weren't very strong, they still dropped quite a number of flaming hounds. These things were the same as the flaming bead, they were both materials that could increase the stats of equipment. The only difference was that the flaming hounds could only increase the stats of weapons. After cleaning up the battlefield, everyone continued forward. After encountering a few more waves of flaming twin-headed hounds, everyone finally reached the end of the lava road. At the end of the road was a pitch-black palace entrance. When they were close, they didn't think much of it. However, from afar, they could see that the shape of the palace entrance was like the mouth of a giant beast. It was very terrifying. The palace didn't have a gate. Looking in from the outside, it was pitch black and nothing could be seen. Holy light technique. Wuji chanted softly and threw out a dazzling holy light ball. The holy light ball slowly flew into the palace. However, the moment it entered the palace, the light was swallowed. F***ck. Looking at the strange palace gate, Mingdu was puzzled. What kind of principle is this? Everyone had played Rebirth for so long, but they had never seen such a deliberate thing. I'm not sure. Wuji shook his head. Who knows what kind of weird setting this is? Could there be a boss lying in ambush inside? Seeing that Wuji didn't know what was going on, everyone stopped in their tracks and started making wild guesses. After all, it wasn't impossible for a game designer to do something like this with their shameless face. As the saying went, it was easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to guard against a stab in the dark. Everyone was an expert, and they were fearless when facing a boss head-on. However, this situation was obviously a trap. It would be stupid to jump into it. In the end, Wang Yu was brave. Seeing that everyone was worried, he volunteered. I'll go in and take a look. Be careful. Come out immediately if anything happens. After Wuji reminded him, Wang Yu walked into the palace cautiously. Pada. Just as Wang Yu stepped into the palace, there was a soft sound, and the originally dark palace suddenly became brightly lit. F***ck. Seeing this scene, everyone outside the door secretly vomited blood. Damn it, the game designer was too much of a scammer. He had purposely set up such a lousy scene to scare people. If it wasn't for the fact that Wang Yu was a newbie who was extremely daring, this group of self-proclaimed experts would have been scared away. Everyone cursed the game designer as they followed Wang Yu's footsteps into the palace. The palace wasn't as grand as imagined. On the contrary, it was very narrow. Right in front of everyone was a small door that was 2 meters tall. Just like before, it was also dark inside. Everyone be careful, don't go in. Seeing the small door, Wuji frowned and reminded everyone. Hearing Wuji's reminder, everyone was very disdainful. "Tsk. It must be a trick again. Saint Seiya wouldn't be defeated by the same trick twice. After falling for it once, there was no way they would fall for it again." Thus, the group of people ignored Wuji's advice and walked straight into the small door. Sigh. Seeing that everyone wasn't listening, Wuji shook his head and followed. Kaboom! However, just as Wuji walked into the small door, a huge rock suddenly fell from above, blocking the door completely. Ha 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 ha! You guys can't escape this time. Chapter 1440. Oh no! We've been tricked. Everyone trembled when they heard the voice and subconsciously looked in the direction of the voice. However, the scene they were in was pitch black. They could not see anything at all. The way in had been blocked. It was too late to turn back. The eyes were the most important organ for exploring the world. Whether it was in the real world or in the game, vision was always the most important sense for players. Therefore, although blind was not a strong control skill, it was the most disgusting obstacle skill for players. One had to know that Rebirth was a holographic simulation game. Normally, when players were blinded in online games, they would at most have a special effect on their head. However, in Rebirth they could feel it firsthand. At this time, the scene was pitch black. It was no different from being blinded. If it were an ordinary player, they would have already started fleeing in all directions when they encountered the boss. After all, even if they could not avoid the boss attacks while moving, they would still feel an inexplicable sense of security. Fortunately, both Chuanjin and Hades were experienced expert. After hearing the movement, everyone was only slightly surprised. Then, Wuji immediately ordered, "It's dark and the road is slippery. Everyone, don't move. Get into a defensive formation." After receiving the order, everyone stood back to back in a circle. They vigilantly pricked up their ears and tried to determine the location of the sound. At this time, the arrogant voice laughed again. "Ah, do you think you can detect me?" Whoosh. Then, there was a sound of something breaking through the air. Wang Yu and Chun Xiang shouted almost at the same time. Diagonally up 2 o'clock. Hearing this, Yin Lao Air hurriedly raised his shield. Unfortunately, although Yin Lao Air's reaction was fast, the opponent's attack was faster. After getting the hint from Wang Yu and Chun Xiang, it was too late to raise the giant shield. Everyone only heard a gust of wind, but they did not wait for the sound of the attack hitting the shield. Everyone suddenly realized that they did not defend against it. At the same time, the boss in the dark suddenly exclaimed. In this scene, the players could not see the opponent, but the boss in the dark could see clearly. Naturally, he also knew where his attack landed. "Who did you attack? Who did you attack?" Not hearing the sound of a shield, everyone started to ask around in the dark. "I didn't hit anyone," Wang Yu replied calmly. "How did you know?" The people from the Netherworld King Realm were a bit surprised by Wang Yu's reply. They thought to themselves, why does this boy's tone sound so natural? Wang Yu said, "I caught the arrow. It's an archer boss. Its AI isn't low." He caught it? Hearing Wang Yu's words, everyone from the Netherworld King Realm felt their hairs stand on end. Catching an arrow with one's bare hands was not particularly difficult for a professional expert. Ordinary experts with sufficient reaction speed and agility could easily accomplish such a feat, but what was the situation now? It was pitch black, and no one dared to take more than a few steps. It was already a problem to determine the enemy's position, let alone catch the enemy's arrows with their bare hands. What was even more frightening was that the opponent was a boss with high AI. What kind of metaphysical hack was this? If everyone hadn't seen Wang Yu's skills before, they would have really suspected that Iron Ox was just bragging. Just as everyone from the Netherworld King Realm was in disbelief, Wang Yu suddenly reprimanded them in a low voice. "Why are you all looking at me? You're affecting my judgment. Turn your heads." "Of judgment? Although the people from the Netherworld King realm didn't know what Wang Yu meant, after being reprimanded by Wang Yu, they subconsciously shrunk their necks and hurriedly turned their heads. At this time, Wang Yu said again, "It's still at 2 o'clock. Second brother, raise your shield." Oh. This time, Yin Lao Air was prepared. When Wang Yu said 2 o'clock, Yin Lao Air raised his shield in time. Duong! With a light sound, an arrow hit Yin Lao Air's shield. Pung! At the same time, there was a violent sound of a bowstring behind Wang Yu. When Wang Yu determined the opponent's position, the Grim Reaper's left hand released his own attack. Pooh! The sound of an arrow piercing flesh reached everyone's ears, and they were delighted. The Grim Reaper's left hand's attack was always so shocking. Although this arrow was quite loud, Wang Yu shook his head and said, "Unfortunately, it didn't hit." "Didn't hit? It can't be, The Grim Reaper's left hand was just about to refute when the boss proudly shouted, "You want to attack me? You have a dream. Do you know what a cloning technique is? Damn. You can see?" This time, the Netherworld King Realm players finally couldn't help but ask Wang Yu. Damn it, it was one thing to receive an attack from the boss. It could be explained by listening to the sound, but the fact that an arrow had hit a doppelganger? Even if one had vision, it would be difficult for a normal person to distinguish the doppelganger from the real body at such a distance. Right now, it was dark and everyone was back to back. They couldn't see what their teammates looked like, but Wang Yu could accurately determine that the Grim Reaper's left hand had attacked a clone. If he said he couldn't see, no one would believe him. "I can't see," Wang Yu said. "Then how do you know you didn't hit?" The Netherworld King Realm players asked suspiciously. "The boss didn't scream?" Wang Yu laughed. "Pooh!" As soon as Wang Yu said this, the Netherworld King Realm players coughed up blood. "You can do that? Is there a setting for the boss to scream after being hit?" "No." Wang Yu continued, "But when the Grim Reaper's left hand shot the arrow, I felt the boss move." Feel? The Netherworld King Realm players couldn't believe their ears. He felt that this word was synonymous with making something up. How could such rational young people believe in such nonsense? "You guys don't understand," Mingdu said casually. "Our old cow's true identity is the Phoenix Saint Seiya of the Greek divine realm. This is just his sixth sense. If he unlocks his eighth sense, he can fight a level 200 celestial boss for a few rounds. You know the Dragon Emperor Dales, right? He's Old Cow's little brother. Old Cow, call Dales out and let these ignorant people see the world." Hearing Mingdu's words, Wang Yu was speechless. Look at how capable this grandson is. Does he really think that Dales is someone who can be summoned at any time? F***ck, really? It was clear that these fellows from the Netherworld King Realm were all honest people. They had never dealt with a blabbermouth like Mingdo before, so they were easily fooled by Mingdo's words. "Don't listen to his nonsense," Wang Yu quickly explained. "Dragon Emperor Dales is only my follower in name. I can't control him. Whether he comes to help me depends on his mood." F***ck. It's true. As soon as Wang Yu said this, the Netherworld King Realm players completely knelt down. They were shocked and said, "Meow, did you hear that? Dragon Emperor Dales is his follower? I thought the Saint Seiya were just characters in comic." Chapter 1441. Hey, can you guys show some respect? Seeing that Wang Yu and the others were still chatting, the boss was the first to be unhappy and could not help but shout. 10 o'clock direction. At this time, Wang Yu once again reported the boss location to everyone. Bang! Yin Lao Air and Shura both raised their shields to protect everyone. The bowstring of Grim Reaper's left hand sounded, and an arrow was shot at the boss again. Duong! There was a loud sound. Even without Wang Yu's warning, everyone also realized that Grim Reaper's left hand had missed the target again and shot the wall. F***ck. Seeing that he missed again, Grim Reaper's left hand angrily clenched his fist and smashed it into his palm. Don't be anxious, Wuji comforted from the side. The enemy is in the dark, and we are in the light. It's normal to miss. Sigh. Grim Reaper's left hand shook his head and sighed. I always feel that my prediction is lacking a little. Otherwise, even if I can't see the opponent, I would still be able to hit him. Everyone in Quan Quan believed in Grim Reaper's left hand's words. This was because in the professional league, everyone had personally seen Grim Reaper's left hand rely on the direction of the opponent's attack to kill them. However, the boss this time was clearly slightly smarter than the enemies that Grim Reaper's left hand had encountered before. Leave the prediction to me. You're in charge of attacking. Just as Grim Reaper's left hand was feeling depressed, Chun Xiang suddenly spoke up. You? Can you do it? Hearing Chun Xiang's words, Grim Reaper's right hand could not help but say in a somewhat unfriendly tone, Prediction, our boss is a professional. In reality, Chuanjin was still quite famous. Although their reputation was not that good, they had been in the game for so many years and had not been destroyed. It was clear that this group of people was not as simple as it seemed. Chun Xiang was the #1 expert in Chuanjin before Wang Yu, so his strength was also evident. Of course, it wasn't that Death's right hand didn't know Chun Xiang's name, but Death's right hand knew how strong Death's left hand was. No matter how strong Chun Xiang was, he was still an amateur. There was still a gap between his strength and Death's left hands. In this situation, Death God's left hand believed that he couldn't predict the boss position, but Chun Xiang had jumped out and said that he could. This was no longer a question of strength. In the minds of the Underworld King's left hand, Chun Xiang was clearly challenging Death God's left hand. No wonder Death God's left hand had such a strong reaction. After all, Death God's left hand was the #1 master in the Netherworld King realm. If he couldn't compare to Wang Yu, then that was fine, but if he even dared to step on Spring Soar, then that was simply looking down on masters. It was just like if Wuji was bullied outside, the people of Chuanjin would also be unhappy. In any case, it was the leader of Chuanjin. Even if it was bullied, it should be bullied by itself. How could it be an outsider's turn? Bullying it was the same as bullying Chuanjin. Chun Xiang was a veteran member of the Quanjin sect, so his temper was naturally very bad. Don't be fooled by his smiling face when facing the people from the Quanjin sect. His attitude was quite unyielding when he was scolded by others. You don't need to care about whether I can do it or not. It's fine as long as you know that left hand can't do it. Chun Xiang replied to Death God's right hand indifferently. Then, he said to Wang Yu, Old cow, where is the boss now? He's in the 1130 direction. Wang Yu replied after sensing for a moment. Left hand, raise your bow and aim. When Chun Xiang heard this, he calmly gave an order to Death God's left hand. Then, he whispered, When I tell you to shoot, shoot. Although Death God's left hand was a little unwilling, since Wang Yu had already reported the position, he was embarrassed to not aim. So, he raised his giant bow and aimed at the position that Wang Yu had said. It must be said that the attack of a full-strength archer was quite terrifying. Although Death God's left hand's 2 arrows did not hit the boss saw the momentum and was also on guard. At this moment, seeing that Death God's left hand was aiming at him again, the boss was shocked and quickly began to move. Feeling the boss movement, Wang Yu immediately said, He's moving to the right. 1:00 direction. Chun Xiang's eyes tightened as he reported the direction of the attack. At the same time, Death God's left hand quickly adjusted the angle. Chun Xiang paused for a moment and said, Shoot! Bang! Following Chun Xiang's command, Death God's left hand released the bowstring. Pooh! With a muffled sound, the thick arrow hit the boss' left shoulder. The boss screamed and was nailed to the wall. Hit! Hearing the boss's cry, Death God's left hand grabbed the longbow, and a look of joy appeared on his face. What do you mean? Seeing that Chun Xiang's prediction was really effective, Death God's left hand's jaw dropped to the ground on the spot. Prediction ability was the dividing line between expert players and ordinary players. When one's strength reached the level of a professional player, even if there was a difference in prediction ability, the difference would not be too obvious. After all, the probability of this was similar to gambling. It was all based on intuition and awareness. No one dared to say that one was better than the other. However, the momentum in Chun Xiang's words made Death God's right hand clearly feel Chun Xiang's confidence in his prediction. It was as if he was saying, "My prediction can't be wrong." And the truth was like this, which was a bit difficult to understand. Theory? Chun Xiang thought for a moment and said indifferently, "Learn mathematics, physics, and chemistry well, and you won't have to be afraid to travel the world." Yeah. Not only Death God's right hand, but even the other people from Netherworld were all in a state of confusion when they heard Chun Xiang's explanation. It couldn't be helped. These people from Netherworld were not the type to read. How could they think of how Chun Xiang predicted? If Chun Xiang really told them that he calculated the boss's movement distance based on the sound and the shooting angle, then calculated the boss's movement speed based on the distance, and finally predicted the boss's landing point, the people from Netherworld would probably be even more confused. After all, even the people from Chuanjin who had been in contact with Chun Xiang for a long time saw Chun Xiang as an alien. Why was Chun Xiang so confident? Because in his heart mathematics could not be wrong. If there was a mistake, it was only because you made a mistake. The same was true for prediction. Where is the boss now? Chun Xiang asked Wang Yu, ignoring the dumbfounded Underworld King's people. He hasn't moved, Wang Yu replied. Continue to aim. Okay. Death God's left hand nodded wholeheartedly. He pulled the bowstring and aimed an arrow at the boss's position. You group of despicable invaders. At this time, the boss no longer had the arrogance from before. After tasting the power of Death God's left hand's arrow, he was even more afraid. Seeing that Death God's left hand was aiming at him again, the boss cursed angrily. He grabbed the arrow with one hand and pulled it out fiercely. Then, he rolled to the left and got up to run. He moved to the left. Wang Yu reported in a timely manner. 11 o'clock direction. Fire. Pooh! With another command from Chun Xiang, Death God's left hand's arrow flew out and hit the boss's chest. Chapter 1442. Ouch! The boss let out another blood-curdling screech. Everyone's hearts trembled when they heard it. The first shot could still be explained by chance, but there was no such thing as a coincidence if he shot it twice in a row. Grim Reaper's left hand, who had missed twice before, was now much more confident. He didn't need to worry about his prediction anymore. His attacks were much smoother than before. Mentality was the most important factor in archery. Grim Reaper's left hand's condition was at its peak. Wang Yu, Chun Xiang, and Grim Reaper's left hand worked together like a fighter jet. Wang Yu was the radar, Chun Xiang was the pilot, and Grim Reaper's left hand was the ammunition. The three of them were top-notch experts. Their coordination was as precise as a machine. They hit wherever they pointed. The poor boss couldn't even lift his head. Finally, on the 10th arrow, Wang Yu's expression suddenly turned cold. She reminded everyone, protect yourselves. He's charging over. Hearing Wang Yu's warning, the melee players in the front row immediately went into a defensive stance. The ranged players in the back row hid behind the melee players. The Grandmaster of Combat was also a melee class, so Wang Yu naturally stood in the front row. As an archer boss, the boss was very fast. Everyone had just gotten into formation when the boss rushed to the front of the formation. Although the boss was being suppressed by everyone, its AI was very high. Seeing that the players were in formation, it naturally knew how to attack selectively. Faced with everyone's defense, the boss turned around when it landed. It went around Yin Lao Air and Shura and rushed towards Wang Yu, who was closest to it. Due to the aggro system, a high AIN NPC would prioritize attacking players who posed a threat to it. At that moment, there were only 3 people in the team who could pose a threat to the boss: Wang Yu, Chun Xiang, and Grim Reaper's left hand. Chun Xiang's vitality was very high. Moreover, he was standing in the back row, so the boss definitely wouldn't attack Chun Xiang. Grim Reaper's left hand had been hit by the boss so many times. The boss knew how strong it was and wouldn't take the initiative to attack it. Therefore, the boss chose Wang Yu, who was closest to him and seemed to have average survivability. Wang Yu was the radar of the 3-man team. Killing Wang Yu was equivalent to killing everyone's eyes. This way, the boss could hide in the dark and shoot arrows. After all, this was the boss' specialty. Of course, this was just wishful thinking on the boss's part. Some things should only be thought of and not taken seriously. The players in the front row felt a gust of cold wind blow past them. The boss jumped in front of Wang Yu, reached behind his waist with his right hand, pulled out a dagger, and stabbed at Wang Yu's neck. This boss walked like the wind. Normal people would be able to sense it. Needless to say, Wang Yu noticed it when the boss moved in front of Yin Lao Air. Wang Yu noticed it clearly. He prepared himself mentally. Before the boss's dagger could stab into his throat, he tilted his body slightly and dodged the boss's attack. Then, he stretched out his left hand and used Ferocious Tiger Strike to grab the boss's wrist that was holding the dagger and pulled it backwards. He tripped it with his feet and at the same time used Choke to grab the boss's throat. He pushed it forward and shouted, "Stay here!" Bang! The boss raised his dagger and stabbed forward. When he was grabbed by Wang Yu, it was already too late for him to stop. Wang Yu's pull and grab skill had high priority. Even if the boss was a boss, it was still heavily pressed to the ground. Then, Wang Yu knelt on the ground with his right leg and pressed down on the boss's lower abdomen. His fists alternated and punched the boss's face. Sky-dominating fist dance. This was one of the Grandmaster of Combat's ultimate skills. It continuously attacked the target. Bang 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 bang. The sound of fists hitting flesh filled the air. Everyone who heard it was shocked. Damn, who was the one being ambushed? Stop hitting me. If you continue, I'll die. Under Wang Yu's heavy punches, the boss student was beaten until he was begging for mercy. He was even crying. Hearing the boss's cries, everyone's face turned pale. Brother, you're a boss after all. Is it really okay to be beaten by a player until you beg for mercy? Wang Yu was a kind person. He reacted instinctively. When the boss begged for mercy, he stopped attacking and said to the boss, "Stay still. If you dare to move, I'll kill you." Hearing this, the boss hurriedly replied, I know. Please stop hitting me. I know I'm wrong." Hey, seeing that the boss was so spineless, Mingdu couldn't help but say, "Can't you have some dignity? If you die, you die. Do you have to do this?" It couldn't be helped. In the minds of the players, life was worthless in the game. If they were beaten until they begged for mercy, they might as well die. "What do you know?" the boss retorted. "If you die, you can still revive. If I die, I'll really die." Heh! Hearing the boss's words, everyone was happy. Great, this boss was a smart person. The AI was not bad. It knew what should be compared and what should not be compared. Wuji came over and said calmly, "Since you're so sensible, why don't you turn on the lights?" Oh. The boss hurriedly responded and casually snapped his fingers. Pa! Everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. The originally pitch-black scene suddenly became brightly lit. When they saw the scene they were in, everyone was shocked and broke out in cold sweat. Meow. It turned out that the scene was a circular room. On the floor of the room was a huge pit. The pit was filled with boiling lava. A circular path went around the lava pit and led to the next scene. If they had taken a few more steps forward, they would have been consigned to eternal damnation. Directly opposite where Wang Yu and the others were standing, there was a 10-meter-long plank road diagonally above them. It was obvious that the boss had stood on the plank road to attack everyone. As for the boss, after sighing at the danger of the scene, everyone hurriedly looked down at the boss. They saw that the boss was very strange. Unlike the fiery red monsters here, this boss was wearing a set of black clothes. He looked very wretched and had 2 bull horns on his head. Everyone cast detection on him, and the boss's information appeared in front of them. Explorer, Fiat, LV 55, Gold Boss, Epic Skills, Crossbow Proficiency, Dagger Proficiency Talent, Gear Engineering Character Introduction. Fiat is a household name in the hero's continent. It is said that he has an extraordinary intuition for treasures and can often find valuable things in extremely dangerous places. Until one day, he went to Immortal Abode Island to explore the ancient god's mine, and since then, there has been no news about him in the hero's continent. Chapter 1443. You're a demon? Although Wang Yu was a noob in the game, she had traveled extensively in the game and was rather knowledgeable. When she saw the horn on Fiat's head, she immediately thought of a certain apostle clone that had died in her hands. Hence, she couldn't help but ask. Fiat glanced at Wang Yu and hurriedly answered honestly, I'm a demon. My name is Fiat and I'm an explorer. What are you doing here? Wang Yu asked again. Do you think I want to be here? Fiat said with a wronged expression, but I can't get out. The doors of the palace are closed, and there are so many terrifying monsters. The monsters inside are even more terrifying, so I can only hide here. How long have you been here? Wang Yu asked again. I don't know. Fiat shook his head. Who could accurately remember the time in such an environment? Heroes, can you let me go now? Fiat asked with a pleading expression after answering Wang Yu's question. It was obvious that he had a strong desire to live. Wang Yu wanted to say something, but Wuji said with a smile, It's not that we can't let you go. You're useless to us anyway. Thank you, thank you. Fiat looked at Wuji gratefully. However, what Wuji said next almost scared Fiat to death. Wuji continued, But you attacked us for no reason. We're very unhappy. Since you're useless, we'll throw you into the lava. You must be better off dead than alive after staying here for so long. Since you don't have the courage to die, we'll help you. No need to thank us. Don't. Fiat looked at Wuji in horror and said, Please don't kill me. What's the point of keeping you alive? Wuji asked. Yes. Fiat hurriedly said, I've been here for who knows how long. I'm very familiar with this palace. If you let me go, I'll give you a map of the palace. Damn. What's going on? Seeing that Wuji had actually managed to intimidate an NPC and had even managed to do so, everyone in the Netherworld King's realm felt as if their horizons had been broadened. They had never thought that games could be played like this. Normal operation. Wuji said with a smile. Hee. Everyone from the Netherworld King realm sighed with emotion. No wonder the people of Chuanjin were so rich, but he was so poor. It turned out that they had developed their extortion business to the NPCs. Looking at himself, he hadn't even done this to the players. As expected, in this world, one could either rely on their face to make a living, or they could rely on their shamelessness to make a living. Map. Wuji looked at Fiat and said, Give me the map first. You won't go back on your word if I give you the map, right? As expected of an experienced NPC, Fiat didn't fall for Wuji's trick. No. Wuji smiled and said, As long as you give us the map, we won't pursue the matter of you attacking us. Really? Fiat was overjoyed. He took out a black scroll and handed it to Wuji. Wuji extended his hand to receive it. At the same time, everyone in the party received a system notification. Your party has obtained the quest item, Flame Palace Map. The subsequent scenes have been unlocked. Damn. Everyone was speechless when they saw the system notification. Damn, so this map was a required quest item. Without this map, they wouldn't be able to unlock the subsequent scenes. This was basically the end of the dungeon. What made everyone even more furious was that this required quest item was obtained through extortion. Luckily, Wuji liked to extort people. If it was an honest character like Death's Left Hand, they wouldn't even be able to play this game. The boss would have run away with the quest item. As expected of a despicable and shameless game designer, players would be in big trouble if they were treated as good guys. Since you guys have the map, can I leave now? Fiat looked at Wang Yu cautiously when he saw Wuji take the Flame Palace map. Leave? It can't be that simple. Wuji kept the map in his bag and said with a cold expression. You. Fiat was shocked and furious when he heard Wuji's words. He pointed at Wuji and said, "Didn't you say that as long as I show you the map, you'll forget about what happened between us? Are you going back on your word? Aren't you afraid of being punished by the system god?" "Are you kidding me?" Wuji calmly replied. "We are law-abiding citizens, and we would never do such immoral things. What I just said was that you took out the map, and we can let bygones be bygones for attacking us. Please don't try to change the concept." "Yeah, let bygones be bygones." Fiat was confused. "Then what do we have against each other? Do you see my white robe?" Wuji pointed at his own clothes and said, "Do you recognize it? This." Fiat was sweating profusely. "Are you from the Vatican?" Wuji pointed at Shura and said, "Do you see that handsome guy who's as handsome as me?" "As handsome as you? Don't you have any shame?" Everyone gave him the middle finger. Although Wuji wasn't ugly, he was still a distance away from an idol like Shura. This old dog Wuji was really shameless. No wonder he was the headmaster of those bastards in Chuanjin. "Paladin?" Fiat looked at Shura in the direction that Wuji was pointing at and was shocked again. "That's right." Wuji patted his chest and said righteously, "As the representative of the God of Light in the human world, we can't tolerate any evil in our eyes. As a demon, you dare to stand in front of us. This is a provocation to the God. For justice, for the people, and for the God, we must eliminate you." His words were good, especially when coupled with Wuji's expression. It was amazing that there was such a devout faith in the game. Truly, if it weren't for the fact that they had personally experienced Wuji's character along the way, then those from the Netherworld King realm would have been moved by Wuji's impassioned and high-sounding words. As they recalled Wuji's actions just now, they felt an inexplicable sense of incongruity. If the representative of God was really like this, the Light faction would have been slaughtered by the Dark faction long ago. Fiat was an epic boss. Although his rank wasn't high, his AI wasn't inferior to any intelligent boss. Fiat understood Wuji's intention after seeing Wuji's expression. Fiat sighed helplessly and said, "All right, emissary of light, what do I have to do for you to let me go?" Wuji rubbed his chin and pretended to think for a while. Then, he said, "Darkness is our enemy. Just now, you plunged this place into darkness. What kind of strange sorcery was that? Leave it to me. I purified it myself." Chapter 1444. This. Fiat's expression changed as he pointed at Wuji. "Don't go overboard," he scolded angrily. "Overboard? Ha!" Wuji turned to Wang Yu with a smile. "He said that I'm overboard. Let him see who's even more overboard." "All right." Wang Yu nodded and clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard. Fiat broke out in cold sweat when he saw Wang Yu's reaction. "Let's talk this through. Why resort to violence?" Fiat smiled apologetically. "Violence can't solve all problems." "That's right." Wuji agreed. "But violence can solve problems. How about it, you evil demon? Do you want to hand over those dark things?" Even so, Wang Yu took a step forward. Yes, I'll hand them over. Fiat was scared out of his wits when he saw Wang Yu walking over. He quickly took off his black cloak and stuffed it into Wuji's hands. Wuji glanced at the cloak's attributes. He was stunned for a moment before revealing the attribute. Eternal Night Cloak, Dark Gold, Physical Defense, 170-220 Magic Resistance, 200-240 plus 50 Agility plus 57 Strength plus 44 Intelligence. Night Vision, Passive Skill. When equipped with the Night Cloak, vision won't be affected by darkness. Night Walk, Passive Skill. Movement and attack speed increased by 30% in dark environments. Night Raid, Passive Skill. Attack damage increased by 30% in dark environments. Eternal Night Veil, Active Skill. Creates a dark barrier with a range of 2000. Everything within the range will be plunged into eternal darkness for 60 seconds. Cooldown, 60 seconds. Level requirement, 60. Profession requirement, Archer background introduction. In the faraway demon realm, dark energy is everywhere. The demon realm's god of assassins, Dark Knight, used dark energy to create this cloak and named it after himself. No one has seen this equipment because those who have seen it are all dead. Everyone was stunned when Wuji displayed the attributes of the cloak. The background introduction of this cloak was rather arrogant, and the attributes were even more arrogant. This was a piece of equipment that could optimize one's vision. No matter what kind of game it was, vision was always the most important factor. This was especially so in a holographic simulation game like Rebirth. The original god's view of the game had become an immersive experience, and the field of view had become even more important. Unfortunately, there were so many classes in Rebirth, and only archers had sight bonuses. Moreover, their sight would be limited by the dimming of the light. Because of this, equipment that increased vision was one of the most valuable special equipment in the game. For example, Wuji's glasses were a piece of equipment that increased his vision. Even a rich guy like Wuji was reluctant to use it, and wouldn't even let others touch it. The value of a piece of equipment that increased his vision was evident. One had to know that even Wuji's glasses were just an additional field of vision. Although they weren't affected by light, they were useless in the absolute darkness just now. This cloak was different. Night vision. As the name suggested, it allowed the user to be unaffected in the dark. Such an ability was simply a cheat for an archer who relied on their eyesight for a living. In addition, the most noteworthy was the Eternal Night Barrier skill. Although the archer's current attack range was more than 3,000 meters, the range of 2,000 meters was not a safe distance for the archer. However, in some specific environments, such as the current scene, this barrier was a divine skill. Fighting in the curtain of night barrier was nothing more than giving the archer the ability to go into stealth for 60 seconds. Just imagine an archer with unlimited stealth, sneaky attacks, coupled with the other two powerful attribute bonuses on the equipment. How terrifying would this scene be? Fortunately, the team had Wang Yu, a human radar detector. Otherwise, even if Chun Xiang and Death's left hand were there, everyone would be killed by this small gold boss. After all, the equipment skills had no time limit on the boss. After the surprise, Wuji weighed the cloak in his hand and turned to ask everyone, "There are 3 archers in the team. How should we distribute this equipment?" Che. After listening to Wuji, everyone in Underworld raised their middle fingers. Shameless, really shameless. How could they even say such words? Didn't they know how the boss was captured? The reason why the boss was captured so quickly was mainly because of Wang Yu, Chun Xiang, and Death's left hand. Although Wang Yu contributed the most, the reward for entering the instance dungeon would be distributed according to the class. Wang Yu and Chun Xiang were not archers, so this archer equipment should be given to Death's left hand. This shameless guy actually asked who it should be given to. It was obvious that he wanted Death's left hand and the 2 girls from Chuanjin to roll for it. Everyone had played the game for a long time, but they had never seen such a shameless person. Although Wuji was shameless, the two girls were. Exquisite Dream glanced at the cloak and pouted. I don't want it. Trash. Trash? Everyone was speechless. Big sister, you think the attributes are trash? How high are your standards? Exquisite Dream glanced at Fiat and said, It's not a problem with the attributes, it's just that this equipment is too ugly, and it was left behind by an ugly person. What kind of aesthetic is this? Fiat. F***ck. Exquisite Dream's reasoning was so strong that no one could refute it. So, Wuji turned to Death's left hand and asked, Boss Left Hand, what do you think? Wuji knew that even though Yang Na had never missed a single opportunity when the Chuanjian sect distributed the loot, Yang Na was still a girl after all. She had to be more reserved. Of course, Yang Na also wanted the cloak, but Exquisite Dream had voluntarily forfeited. Yang Na would definitely be too embarrassed to roll with the Death God's left hand. At the end of the day, Yang Na was a newbie in Chuanjian and would not be as shameless as Wuji. So, Wuji took the initiative to ask Death's left hand. With Death's left hand's personality, there was an 80% chance that he would give it to Yang Na. If he did not, Wuji could suggest for Yang Na to roll for it. You're bullying an honest person, you can't be so shameless. As expected, just as Wuji expected, Death's left hand waved his hand when Wuji asked for his opinion and said, I don't want it, give it to Sister Qingxue. It was my fault for the last competition, I hope you won't hold it against me. Death's left hand was not a fool, and he naturally knew what Wuji was thinking. Instead of being ungentlemanly and bickering with a girl, he might as well do her a favor and at the same time solve a problem that was bothering him. Boss Left Hand is really generous. Wuji flattered and smiled as he gave the cloak to Yang Na. Is this really okay? Yang Na looked at Death's left hand and the angry people from Hades, feeling a little embarrassed. It's okay. Death's left hand waved his hand generously and said, Take it, this equipment is not very useful to me. Chapter 1445. Boss, seeing that Death's left hand had given up on the item, the others in Hades were indignant. Death's left hand was the one with the most power. Why should he give it to someone else? Death's left hand smiled and waved his hand. With my range, only the night vision attribute is useful to me. The other attributes are a waste. Indeed, Death's left hand was an archer. For an archer, strength came with range. The greater the strength, the further the range. The effective range of an ordinary archer was around 30 meters, but Death's left hand's effective range was terrifying, exceeding 100 meters. The cloak's barrier only had a range of 2,000 meters. In other words, under normal circumstances, the cloak's two attributes would only take effect within 20 meters. 20 meters was not far for an archer. At the current stage, mages' attack range was between 15 to 20 meters. Mages had many control skills, and their damage output was the highest among all the classes. At the same attack range, a fragile class like an archer could only be described in one word: instant kill. If it was an ordinary archer with agility, they might have a chance against a mage who needed to cast skills. However, Death's left hand, a clumsy archer with full strength, could only stand there and be a target. But Yang Na was different. Not only was she agile, but she was also an archer who excelled in melee combat. When PvP, she would only stop when her crossbow was pressed against her opponent's head. Obviously, this cloak could only be used to its full potential in Yang Na's hands. Then, thank you. Hearing Death's left hand's words, Yang Na thanked him and took the cloak in embarrassment. Yang Na was not the kind of person who did not know what was good for her. Although Death's left hand's words made sense and most of the cloak's attributes had no effect on her, night vision was a godly skill for any class. Yang Na was very grateful that Death's left hand was willing to give her the cloak. You're welcome. Death's left hand waved his hand generously. I hope Lady Qingxue will not hold a grudge against me for what happened before. Of course. Yang Na blushed. Seeing Grim Reaper's left hand's attitude and thinking about how she had used such a despicable method to scam equipment, Yang Na suddenly felt that she was a martial artist in vain. Even the members of Chuanjin, who had always advocated shamelessness in the game, were dumbfounded when they saw the Grim Reaper's left hand generously give away the equipment. Holy shit. Even though this kid is a little silly, he's cute in a silly way. Chun Xiang clicked her tongue in amazement. Yeah. I didn't expect him to be so straightforward. Mingdu was also in disbelief. Of course, do you think he's like you? Yang Na said. Hey. You little girl. Everyone looked at her in disdain. You're actually siding with an outsider. It's not like we were the ones who took the equipment. Hey that! Just when everyone was looking at Yang Na with disdain, Fiat glanced at Wang Yu fearfully and asked Wuji weakly, Can I leave now? Go. Wuji laughed coldly. As a demon, do you think the Lord will forgive you just because of a cloak? Wuji was starting to regret bullying the Grim Reaper's left hand after seeing how honest he was. It seemed like he had to force something out of the Grim Reaper's left hand, or else he would feel guilty. Fiat secretly slapped himself and asked, What else do you want? What do you mean, what else do you want? Wuji glared at Fiat. You're trying to atone for your sins, understand? Yes, I understand. Fiat quickly said, What else do you think I can use to atone for my sins? About this. Wuji pointed to the front and said, It's about 10 meters from here to the other side. How did you manage to jump over? Fiat finally realized that this cleric who called himself the Lightbringer was more of a demon than he was. This cleric was trying to dig him dry. Fiat pondered for a moment and asked helplessly, Will you let me go if I hand this skill over to you? Are you trying to negotiate with us? Wuji said expressionlessly, Don't forget that even if you don't hand it over, we can still loot it if we kill you. This is the fate of all bosses in front of players. Fiat snorted coldly, greedy bastard. This skill is unique to me. As long as I'm not willing to teach you, it's useless even if you kill me. Is that so? Wuji was taken aback. He rubbed his chin and said, All right, I'll let you go as long as you hand over the skill. What about them? Fiat was smart and immediately understood the trap in Wuji's words. The system loved to play word games, and Fiat was naturally good at it. Haha. Wuji laughed awkwardly. It's the same for them. Good. You'll keep your word. Fiat retrieved a black skill book and tossed it to Wuji. Wuji extended his hand to receive the skill book and took a look. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. He waved his hand at Wang Yu and said, Old Nyo, let him go. Wang Yu moved aside to make way. Fiat looked at Wang Yu bitterly, then turned his head and asked Wuji angrily, What's your name? Chun Xiang replied with a smile. He's called Fish Watching Underwater. If you can't accept it, you can come and take revenge on us. Fish watching underwater? Fiat repeated and then said fiercely, I'll remember you. The mountains will never change, and the rivers will always flow. I'll definitely look for you again. With that, Fiat leaped up and disappeared before everyone's eyes. Fish watching underwater? After Fiat left, Grim Reaper's left hand looked at Wuji and asked, Aren't you Wuji? Yes. Wuji nodded. Who's fish watching underwater? Grim Reaper's left hand asked. AB**TCH. Wuji chuckled. Tisk, looking at Wuji's expression, the people from the Netherworld King's world couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines. AI NPCs were very narrow-minded. From the looks of it, Fiat would definitely take revenge. They didn't know what kind of sin that pitiful person called watching fish under the water had committed to provoke an epic boss for no reason. It seemed like the saying that it was better to offend a gentleman than a villain was true. Initially, everyone thought that Grim Reaper's left hand was a little cowardly when he gave away the equipment. Now, it seemed like Grim Reaper's left hand's decision was definitely wise. After all, being targeted by Chuanjin's group would probably choke on cold water. Chapter 1446. Grim Reaper's left hand took the skill book from Wuji's hand and looked at it. His eyes flashed with surprise. He then cupped his fist at Wuji and said, "Boss Wuji, you're a good friend." Wuji waved his hand and said, "Don't talk to me about being a good friend. Hurry up and learn it. Otherwise, I'll feel sorry for you." Grim Reaper's left hand laughed and clapped. The skill book turned into a white light and entered Grim Reaper's left hand's body. The others could not help but wonder when they heard their conversation. "What skill is it?" "Ha ha!" Grim Reaper's left hand smiled proudly and displayed the skill he had just learned. Feather Wind Step, passive skill. 3 consecutive jumps. Total jump distance, 1200. MP consumption, 200. Cooldown, 10 seconds. Triple jump. Seeing the skill attributes displayed by Grim Reaper's left hand, everyone could not help but feel envious. In Rebirth, jumping was the same as rolling. It was not restricted by movement speed. In other words, whether it was a full agility archer or a full strength archer, there was no difference in jumping and rolling speed. Even if they were slowed by a skill, their jumping and rolling speed would not change. Because of this, the use of rolling and jumping in battle was very important. Rolling was a special skill. When used, it would make one invincible. However, in a holographic simulation game, the requirements for players to roll were similar to those in reality. If it wasn't for the fact that Wang Yu was an expert who had received professional training, it would be quite difficult for an average person to reach the level where he could flip as he pleased. It would be impossible for him to do so without vomiting 1,000 times. Therefore, in comparison, jumping was a more convenient skill. Whether it was dodging or increasing the distance, it could not do without the assistance of jumping. However, the range of jumping was very limited. Even if it was a run-up jump, the upper limit was only 500 range. During a fixed jump in battle, the upper limit was only 200 range. In Rebirth, except for Grandmasters of Combat and Assassins, the upper limit of the melee class's attack range was about 500 range. Jumping a distance of 200 meters was a little out of his league. Although there was a double jump skill on the market now, it was also a skill that could only be found by chance. Professional teams also prioritized agility classes. The poor people in Underworld had only heard of it at most. At this time, seeing Grim Reaper's left hand demonstrate a triple jump that was more powerful than the double jump, one could imagine their mood. One could only imagine how Grim Reaper's left hand felt when he saw Grim Reaper's left hand demonstrate a triple jump that was more powerful than the double jump. However, Reaper's left hand gave up the speed that archers relied on their attacks, making it very easy for them to close. If it was a warrior, paladin, or grandmaster of combat, the Grim Reaper's left hand could still rely on his immense strength to fight back. However, if it was an assassin, he would not be able to outrun the Grim Reaper's left hand. Now that the Death God's left hand had the ability to jump 3 times, it had a teleportation range of 1,200 meters. This was no different from adding oil to the most dangerous machine. The chemical reaction involved was extremely terrifying. Just imagine a turret-type archer that could kite. How terrifying would that be? No wonder Wuji said that he would regret it. It was fine to be friends with such a person, but if they became enemies one day, it would be quite difficult to deal with them. Of course, Wuji still trusted the Grim Reaper's left hand. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given him the skill. Just as everyone was envious of the Grim Reaper's left hand, Wang Yu asked, "What should we do next?" Wang Yu was a newbie in the game. Moreover, he had strong control and had lightness skill quadruple jump, so he couldn't feel the power of Death's left hand. Compared to that, Wang Yu was more interested in the next dungeon. "Let me see." Hearing Wang Yu's question, Wuji took out the map from earlier and clicked to use it. At the same time, the map option appeared in everyone's control panel. The map of the entire Inferno Palace was displayed in front of everyone. Holy shit! This map is so big! After seeing the map of Inferno Palace, everyone was stunned. So far, everyone had walked through 3 scenes and cleared 2 bosses. However, looking at the map, everyone had only walked less than 1/10 of the distance. It seemed that this hidden dungeon was more troublesome than expected. Only God knew if this so-called Flame Overlord was really imprisoned here. Why was he imprisoned with so many subordinates? Did he come here to enjoy his life? Looking at the huge map, the Grim Reaper's left hand touched his chin and said, "It seems that we can't finish this dungeon in a day. We have to find a save point first." The save point was something that only high-grade dungeons had. As the players' levels increased, the difficulty and process of the dungeons in the later stages of the game would increase. The save point was something similar to a resurrection point. Players could save their dungeon progress here. This way, as long as they did not leave the team, even if they logged off and logged back in again, they could go back online at the dungeon progress point. Even if they returned to the city to buy supplies, they could still go back to the save point. Otherwise, the dungeon would be like a mirror image. If there was no backup, it would disappear. If they did not save, they would have to start over. Makes sense. Wuji nodded and ordered, "Everyone, look around and see if there is a save point." Okay." Everyone received the order and looked around. Only Wang Yu asked stupidly, "What is a save point?" Hearing this, everyone felt a chill. Damn, such a noob is the #1 expert in the game. Can you believe it? "It's something like a teleportation circle," Wuji replied calmly. "You mean this?" Wang Yu looked at the map, then pointed at the lava pit and asked, Hearing Wang Yu's words, everyone quickly looked in the direction that Wang Yu was pointing at. In the end, they only saw a sea of fiery red lava. "There's nothing." Everyone rubbed their eyes and said, "Old cow, you can't be mistaken, right? You guys haven't received professional training, your eyesight is bad." Wang Yu said, "Wuji, put it on and take a look." Wuji quickly took out his glasses and put them on. Looking down again, as expected, there was a light blue magic circle at the position where Wang Yu was pointing. As the surroundings were all red flames, it was impossible to see it if one did not look carefully. Wuji's glasses ignored the interference of the surrounding light, so he could see it clearly. Forget it. Seeing the teleportation circle in the lava pit, Wuji put away his glasses and said, "Let's go to the next boss and save." "Yes, yes, yes. Good, good, good." The others echoed. Chapter 1447. Then, they walked around the lava pit and walked along the path. Soon, they arrived at the small door on the opposite side. Wuji pushed open the small door, and was about to step in when he suddenly received a system prompt. "Are you sure you want to enter the next scene from the secret door?" Seeing the system prompt, Wuji immediately stopped. After playing the game for so long, Wuji was well aware of the game system's tricks. There was no way the system would give him such a random notification. There had to be something else going on. "Wuji, why are you stopping?" Seeing that Wuji stopped, Wang Yu asked. "Everyone stop." Wuji waved his hand and said, "Go back, we'll go out from the door we came from." This scene only had one exit and one entrance. Since there was a problem with the exit, they would go back. This kind of multiple-choice question was very simple. Although everyone was a little confused, everyone saw how vigilant and sinister Wuji was along the way. Since Wuji asked them to go back, then they would go back. After all, he was the commander. Not only was it inappropriate to disobey his orders, but if he held a grudge against them, they would definitely not get a share of the later rewards. Therefore, under Wuji's request, everyone turned around and went back to the entrance. Then, they went out from the small door. However, Just when everyone thought that they had returned to the palace, the scene in front of them made everyone slightly stunned. Meow, this side of the entrance was not the palace, but the same scene as before. In front of everyone was still the lava pit with tumbling lava. Everyone's position had changed from the entrance to the exit. A group of people was standing under the plank road. Although this kind of situation was rare in online games, it was not rare. Many games had such a maze setting. Even one of the ancestors of ancient online games, Legend of Mir 2, had a map called Stone Graveyard that could endlessly confuse people. Everyone was a veteran player. Seeing this situation, they were only slightly surprised and did not have much of a reaction. Only the inexperienced Wang Yu said with a dumbfounded expression, "Huh? What's going on? Is this ghost hitting the wall?" Ghost hits the wall. TSK, as expected of an expert. This professional term made people speechless. It's a labyrinth, Wuji said. Labyrinth. Hearing these two words, Wang Yu, who had always remained calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, suddenly felt his scalp tighten. For a person like Wang Yu who had no sense of direction, a maze was 180 times more terrifying than a celestial boss. Don't panic, Wuji said. Under normal circumstances, the maze mechanism has several identical maps, and the connection points are indeed intertwined. As long as we try walking a few more times, we will be able to find the pattern. Then Wuji turned to the others and said, "Let's go back." As he spoke, Wuji was about to crawl through the exit when the system prompted him again. "Are you sure you want to enter the next scenario through the hidden door?" Wuji couldn't stay calm when he received another system notification. It was impossible to pass through this door. Under normal circumstances, even if it was a maze, there had to be at least 2 doors for the players to explore. However, this exit door was obviously impossible to pass through, so there was only the entrance door left. The maze map only had one door that had no end. Entering and exiting, entering and exiting. Wasn't this AF** King endless loop? Was there something wrong with the game designer's brain? Why did he design such a retarded thing? Why? We can't enter this door? Chun Xiang saw Wuji's expression and couldn't help but want to crawl through the door. Don't go in. Wuji immediately stopped him. Obviously, we have a hidden choice. Hidden choice. Everyone was surprised. What choice? Wuji extended a finger and said, "Enter the next scenario through the exit. Second, enter the next scenario through the correct path." Is there a difference? Hearing Wuji's words, everyone was confused. There is. Wuji pointed at the map and said, "There must be something wrong with this map. Could it be that this map is fake?" That was everyone's first reaction. After all, with the shameless style of the system, it was not strange for it to give a fake map. "It's impossible that it's a fake map," Wuji said. "We've already received the notification that the later scenarios are open, so this map isn't fake. As for whether it's correct or not, that's another question." A real map that's wrong? Everyone was even more confused. This sounded like a headache. You can say that. Wuji pondered for a while and said, "Logically speaking, hidden dungeons are hidden, especially single-use dungeons. They definitely don't have a save function. Now that the map option is so big, without saving, it's impossible to clear it without spending tens of hours. Now that the law clearly states that the game has a setting to prevent addiction, do you think it's possible to clear a dungeon for tens of hours continuously?" Hearing Wuji's explanation, everyone understood. Yes, single-use dungeons. From the name, it was obvious that this was a dungeon where either the team was wiped out or the dungeon was cleared. Saving in such a dungeon was clearly against the setting. "Look at this map, it's still a fake map," Death's left hand said with certainty. "No," Wuji corrected him. "This map is an important tool to unlock the next scenario. Instead of saying it's a fake map, it's more like a deceptive map that will lead us astray. Or rather, this is the map of our current scenario. The reason we haven't found the correct route is because we haven't found the correct entrance. The more I listen, the more confused I am, Mingdu said impatiently. Then tell us, what will happen if we enter the next scenario from the exit? If I'm not wrong. Wuji rubbed his chin. If we exit from the exit, the scenario behind us will be a trap set up by the designer. I can't say for sure if there'll be a boss, but there definitely won't be a boss. Furthermore, the monsters will be very difficult because the fake route is to waste your time and force you to log out of the game. F***ck. So despicable? Hearing Wuji's words, everyone was shocked. What was this? It was as if they were afraid that the players would clear the scenario. Don't doubt the nature of the designer. Wang Yu sighed with a heavy heart, as if she was deeply touched. Then what should we do? We can't just keep walking like a ghost. Everyone was in despair. If they kept walking like a ghost, they would only be wasting time. In the end, they would still be kicked out. Wuji rubbed his chin and said, there must be a hidden exit here. Let's keep looking. Hidden exit? Wang Yu thought about it and asked, didn't you say that this dungeon doesn't have a save point? That's right. Wuji nodded. Chapter 1448. F***ck. Everyone exclaimed when they heard Wang Yu's words. That stupid teleportation point is in the fire, and we have to enter the fire pit just to enter the teleportation portal. Isn't this a scam? Boss, don't tell me you want us to be annihilated? We're in the magma. The Hades members exclaimed in horror. Rebirth had the so-called terrain damage. Players were a group of warriors in the game, and they might not be burned to death by fire. However, jumping into the magma would definitely result in death. It wasn't easy for them to reach this place, so why would they take the risk? Furthermore, what he said about the wrong route was just Wuji's conjecture. How could he take it seriously? When he first saw the map, Wuji even said that there was a save point. Didn't he overturn his own conjecture? Rather than taking the risk, they might as well enter through the portal. Don't you guys feel that this lava is different from the lava we've seen before? Faced with everyone's doubts, Wang Yu did not explain but asked a question instead. Magma? Hearing this, everyone craned their necks to take a look. They were all scarlet red and bubbling, equally daunting. So they shook their heads and said, what's the difference? Temperature. At this moment Wuji clenched his fist and exclaimed, it's temperature. Temperature? Hearing Wuji's words, everyone came to their senses. Although there was no sense of pain in rebirth, there was still a sense of temperature. One would feel hot after being hit by fire magic, and one would feel cold after being frozen. Even though there wasn't any pain, the difference was still noticeable. When they entered, they passed by a magma path that was extremely hot, and they could feel the heat as though they were being roasted. However, although there was a huge magma pit in this scenario, they couldn't feel the temperature at all. When they switched off the lights in Fiat, they didn't even notice the magma pit beneath their feet. This was extremely strange. Those who played online games would know that there were two types of scenarios in the game. One was the modeling scenario and the other was the texturing scenario. Modeling scenes were scenes that had been meticulously created. For example, the mountains, rivers, and seas outside the instance dungeon. Everything that could be touched or felt was a model. Scenes that could not be touched or felt but could only be seen, such as the sky and the sun, were maps. Although the lava pit was modeled, no one could feel the temperature of the lava inside. It was obvious that the lava was not real. It was just a map. In gaming terms, it was an illusion created by an illusion. Could it be that the lava below is an illusion? Everyone rubbed their eyes in surprise. Wuji nodded his head. Most likely. Go down and give it a try. Everyone urged Wuji. Damn it, who could be 100% sure if it was a pasted scene? Jumping into the lava was a terrifying act that everyone lacked the courage to do. Fine, I'll jump. Wuji threw a radiant saint shield over his head and leapt into the magma. His cloak fluttered in mid-air, and he landed firmly on the teleportation formation. Afterwards, he disappeared with a flash of light. F***ck, how did it disappear just like that? Was he hurt or not? Or did he die and get out? Wuji. Seeing Wuji disappear, everyone immediately sent a message to Wuji. It would be fine if Wuji directly entered the next scene, but if the lava was like the fountain in MOBA games that ignored invincibility skills, then wouldn't they be sending themselves to death? However, after everyone sent the message, Wuji did not reply. When they privately messaged Wuji, the system replied, "The player is not in the same scene as you. Communication is temporarily unavailable." Not in the same scene. Everyone was a little confused. It was not the same scene outside the dungeon either. Could it be that Wuji was really dead? "Why don't we make a bet?" Chun Xiang said with a smile. "I bet that Wuji has already reached the next scene. Anyone following?" "I'll follow 100 gold coins. Brother Chun is right." Wang Yu was the first to raise his hand and walk to Chun Xiang's side. Although Chun Xiang did not win every bet, this old fellow was good at scheming and rarely made mistakes. The probability of him winning was indeed higher than the average person. "I'll follow too, Brother Chun." Seeing this, the others from Chuanjin followed Wang Yu's example and walked over. The people from Netherworld were dumbfounded. They could even bet on something like this? Everyone was speechless at Chuanjin. Just as the people from Netherworld were sighing at Chuanjin's attitude of having fun until death, they heard the people from Chuanjin yell, "To place one's pride, get the F***ck over to Netherworld." "Why? To place one's pride looked aggrieved." Mingdu said disdainfully, "Why don't you know what you're doing? Hurry up and meet up with your organization. You unlucky B***starred, don't drag down the chances of winning here." F***ck. To place one's pride wasn't the only one who was angry. The people from Netherworld were also angry. Meow, the truth was really hurtful. Forget it. Grim Reaper's left hand was still the boss. At the critical moment, he was calmer than the others. He waved his hand and said, "Since Brother Chun said so, then let's follow." "Boss, don't mess around with them. What if they jump and die?" Grim Reaper's right hand cautiously said. "Die?" Grim Reaper's left hand smiled bitterly. "This dungeon is full of traps. It's not like you haven't seen it. Now that we have no commander, when Old Cow and Brother Chun jump, how long do you think we can hold on?" It had to be said that although Grim Reaper's left hand's personality was straightforward, he was still very comprehensive. In terms of skills, the Underworld King's team had enough strength to look down on anyone. But in terms of combat skills, the entire Underworld King's team couldn't compare to any random person from the Quanjin sect. Dungeons did not rely only on skills. Commanding was the most important. Otherwise, with a ruthless person like Wang Yu and Chuanjin, why would they need help from others? Couldn't they just do it alone? Tisk, tsk. Seeing that Grim Reaper's left hand was so clear-headed, Mingdu could not help but point at to place one's pride inside. "I told you, once you get involved, this dungeon will fail. You little jinx. Get lost. You are the jinx." To place one's pride grabbed Mingdu and pressed him to the ground. "Aya, aya." Mingdu's screams were endless. Hee. Chun Xiang ignored the quarreling Mingdu and said with a smile, "Since we have reached a consensus, let's go down. Who's going first?" Ugh, everyone's eyes turned and fell on the quarreling Mingdu and to place one's pride. The two felt the sudden silence around them and could not help but shiver. They quickly hugged each other and stared at everyone vigilantly. "What do you want?" Chapter 1449. Iron Ox, I'll F***cku. The two of them screamed and fell into the teleportation array in the magma. With a flash of white light, the two of them disappeared. After throwing Mingdu and to place one's pride down, Wang Yu turned his head and glanced at the others. Anyone who was seen by Wang Yu couldn't help but tremble. Damn, this is too scary. This grandson didn't even blink when he threw people into the magma. It was obvious that he did this often. Could it be that he was a bandit who specialized in kidnapping people and drowning them in the river in real life? No wonder he was so strong. Seeing everyone's expressions, Wang Yu asked indifferently, "Do you want to jump down or do you want me to help?" "No, no need. We'll do it ourselves." The Chuanjian people knew Wang Yu's character better. They knew that this guy was willing to help others and was a man of his word. If he said he would help someone, he would definitely help their entire family prosper. Hearing Wang Yu's words, the Chuanjian people quickly jumped down. The people from the Netherworld King realm didn't have much interaction with Wang Yu. The Grim Reaper's right hand was still asking, "Why don't you jump? I have to help you." "I'm afraid you won't dare to," Wang Yu said truthfully. "TCH." The Grim Reaper's right hand questioned, "What if you throw us down and don't go down yourself?" "Impossible." Wang Yu waved his hand and said, "This is my mission. If I don't go down, what's the point of me coming here?" Wang Yu's answer was always so impeccable, leaving the Grim Reaper's right hand speechless. Helpless, the Grim Reaper's right hand could only tremble as he walked to the edge of the pit and jumped in. Everyone was a respectable person. If he jumped down himself, he could refute the evaluation of his courage. If he was thrown down by someone else, he wouldn't just lose face. They weren't fools. Even the Grim Reaper's right hand understood this, let alone the other people from the Netherworld King realm. Seeing the Grim Reaper's right hand jump down, the others followed and jumped into the magma. Finally, Wang Yu looked around. Seeing that there was no one around him, he jumped onto the teleportation formation. With a flash of white light, he disappeared into the magma. At the same time, Wang Yu received a system notification. "Your courage is commendable. You have successfully entered the next scenario." Then, the scene in front of Wang Yu changed, and he arrived in front of a palace. That's right. This instant's dungeon had all sorts of palaces, so many that it was dazzling. If I had so many big houses like this, forget about imprisonment, I would even be willing to be exiled. This palace was obviously much more magnificent than the palaces he had seen before. The two doors were more than 10 meters wide and dozens of meters high. The doors were engraved with a layer of glowing magic inscriptions. From a distance, it looked like two soaring phoenixes. System notice: you have discovered the Phoenix Palace. Wang Yu pulled up the map. As Wuji had said, the map had changed. This Phoenix Palace was the last scenario of the instant's dungeon. Wuji and the others must have noticed this as well. They were waiting for Wang Yu not far away. The people from the Netherworld King realm were complaining to the people from Chuanjian about Wang Yu's misdeeds of threatening them. "He's here. Old Cow is here." Seeing Wang Yu teleport over, the people from the Netherworld King realm revealed a look of joy. Unsurprisingly, this was the last scenario of the instant's dungeon. In the eyes of this group of gaming geeks, there was nothing more exciting than fighting to the end of a dungeon. "Hurry up," the people from Chuanjian urged. Wuji turned to look at Wang Yu. Wang Yu gave Wuji an okay gesture. Wuji nodded and led everyone into the Phoenix Palace. Wow! Upon entering the Phoenix Palace, everyone was dumbfounded. The design of this scene was simply amazing. Even Wang Yu, who had seen Dragon Emperor Dales's Golden Palace, could not help but be amazed by this scene. As expected of the lair of the final boss, this palace was much larger than the previous ones. On both sides of the palace were statues of various fire-type demonic beasts. Such a magnificent palace gave off an inexplicable sense of pressure. In front of Wang Yu and the others was a huge crimson throne. The throne was inlaid with flaming gems. A beautiful woman was sitting lazily on the throne. Although her eyes were narrowed and she did not look at everyone, the aura of a king that looked down on the world was overwhelming. Wang Yu was fine. As a grandmaster expert, he had a special self-confidence. The woman's aura did not affect Wang Yu much. However, the others were not as calm as Wang Yu. Not to mention ordinary people, even martial artists like Yang Na lowered their heads, not daring to look up at the woman on the throne. It had to be said that the character of the designer of Rebirth was terrible, but the game design was absolutely top-notch. In the past, everyone had always thought that things like pressure could at most be forcefully reduced by the system and could not be materialized. But now, everyone could clearly feel the pressure from a superior. Wang Yu was a martial artist and naturally liked to challenge the strong. Even Dragon Emperor Dales dared to show off his fists, let alone the other bosses. Seeing the boss's imposing aura, Wang Yu frowned and cast a detect spell. Flaming Monarch Nephis, LV 80, Celestial, Legendary, Sealed, HP, MP, Skills, Talents. Seeing the string of question marks on the boss's attribute list, Wang Yu also had a string of question marks floating over her head. Meow, isn't this a F** King level 80 boss? It's not like it's a high-level boss. Why can't I see anything? What's wrong? The others saw Wang Yu's shocked expression and asked softly. Wang Yu did not speak, but instead sent a screenshot of Nephis's attributes to the channel. F***CK. Seeing Wang Yu's screenshot, everyone broke out in a cold sweat. Wang Yu was an inexperienced gamer and did not know what the boss in front of him represented, but the group of gaming veterans knew very well. Celestial boss. No matter what kind of monster it was, as long as it had the word celestial, it would have a qualitative leap, let alone a boss. Celestial level was not just a level, it also represented one's level. This was because only after reaching level 200 could one be considered to have broken through to the celestial level. The world structure of Rebirth was very large, and the number of true celestial level bosses was definitely not more than a single digit, including the likes of the Light God, Dark God, Dragon Emperor Titan. Even the 7 ambassadors of the Dark faction and the 6 heroes of the Light faction could not reach the level of celestial legend. As for the average player, even if they spent their entire lives playing online games until they went bankrupt, they would only have heard of celestial level bosses. They did not expect the level 80 woman in front of them to be a sealed celestial level boss. Chapter 1450. Even if a God-tier boss was sealed, it was still a God-tier boss. As everyone knew, even if a boss's level changed, its rank would not change. For example, Titan Arceus had lowered his strength to level 40, but his combat level was still level 200. The so-called seal was just an expert smurf. It was just a decrease in attribute. In essence, it was not much different from the original body. Lowering the level was just to fool the opponent. Moreover, a level 80 boss was not a low-level boss. The lower level was only relative to the boss's body. Oh! Seeing that Wang Yu was not affected by his aura, Flame Monarch Nevis was slightly surprised. Then, he looked Wang Yu up and down. A trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. You're actually a martial artist. No wonder you have such an aura. Likewise, Wang Yu calmly cupped his fists at Nevis, showing respect for the strong. In response to Wang Yu's politeness, Nevis coldly snorted and said, "The last time I saw a martial artist, I was still the ruler of the sky. Now I have fallen to such a state. Why? Are you here to humiliate me?" After all, he was a god-tier boss. The way he spoke was indeed different. He had so many underlings and such a big house to live in, but he still made it sound like he was wronged. Did he know how Dragon Emperor Dales had been all these years? Of course, he was a god-tier boss. If he was released, he would be a dominating existence. This place might indeed be a little unfair for him. Other than Wang Yu, everyone else was now being suppressed by Nevis' aura. At this moment, Nevis was in a bad mood, and his aura suddenly increased. Chuanjin and the people from Hades shrunk their necks and said, "No, no, no, we're just passing by. Sorry to disturb you." After saying this, everyone was about to leave. Nevis looked like he did not want to fight with ants. Seeing that everyone wanted to leave, he did not stop them. Only Wang Yu stood there and stared at Nevis. "Martial artist, aren't you leaving? Are you going to stay and accompany me?" Seeing that Wang Yu didn't move, the corners of Nephi's mouth curled up slightly, and a smile bloomed on his face. Wuji pulled on Wang Yu's shirt and reminded him, "Old cow, this is a god-tier boss." It wasn't that Wuji didn't trust Wang Yu. Rather, his opponent was simply too powerful. Wang Yu was a god-ranked boss. Wuji had only ever heard of such a boss before, but now that he had seen it for himself, just its aura alone was stifling, not to mention killing it. It was obvious that current players couldn't complete this quest. At the very least, players needed to be level 80 or above to complete it. At the very least, they shouldn't have such a massive level suppression. But before Wuji could finish speaking, Wang Yu waved his hand to stop Wuji, and then smiled at Nephi. "No, don't misunderstand, I came here just to kill you." Hearing Wang Yu's words, everyone secretly spat out a mouthful of old blood. "Damn, boss, do you have to be so arrogant? Your opponent is a god-tier boss, not a stray dog on the side of the road. Is it really okay for you to speak like that?" It was obvious that Nephi's temperament was much higher than the bosses he had seen in the past. Hearing Wang Yu's words, he only smiled slightly, and unexpectedly didn't have the slightest bit of anger. Thinking about it, an expert at Nephi's level had seen all sorts of storms and waves. If he was really angered by a single sentence from Wang Yu, it wouldn't be fitting of his status. As expected of a martial artist, Nephi looked at Wang Yu with admiration and said, "Your almost arrogant confidence reminds me of a person." "The person who locked you up here?" Wang Yu said. "That's right." Nephi lazily stretched, changed his posture, and then nodded, saying, "But compared to him, you are still very inexperienced. These words from your mouth will only show that you are overestimating yourself." "Is that so?" Wang Yu said indifferently. "How will you know if you don't try?" "Humph." Nephi looked at Wang Yu again and coldly snorted in disdain, saying, "You want to play with me? You're not worthy. If you're afraid, just say it. Anyway, after hiding underground for so many years, it's normal to be afraid," Wang Yu said with a smile. F***ck. Hearing Wang Yu's words, the Chuanjin people all had goosebumps. What was wrong with Wang Yu today? Why was he so determined to court death? They didn't expect this brat's mouth to be so vicious. Saying such words in front of Nephi, wasn't he touching a sore spot? Unbeknownst to them, this was the effect that Wang Yu wanted. In the team, only Wang Yu had fought a god-tier boss before. Wang Yu knew the personality of a god-tier boss better than anyone else. This group of guys disdained to fight normal people. As a martial artist, Wang Yu's instinct was to challenge the strong. How could he not exchange a few blows with this level of god-tier boss? Some people would also ask, everyone was here to clear a dungeon. Was it up to the boss whether or not they wanted to fight? Just forcefully open it. Don't be silly. The boss could sit on the throne and chat with you, and he could ignore you leaving. It was obvious that Nephi was a triggering NPC. If you forcefully opened the boss without triggering a battle, the boss ignoring you was one thing, but attacking an NPC for no reason was another. With the shamelessness of the system designer, it was possible that he would open Nephi's seal. When that time came, who could defeat a level 200 god-tier boss? It was true that Wang Yu loved to challenge the strong, but there was a difference between challenging himself and courting death. Wang Yu believed that he could fight a level 80 boss, but a level 200 boss would directly crush him in terms of stat. Fighting this kind of boss would not improve his combat skills at all. Because of this, Wang Yu tried to provoke Nephi again and again in order to trigger a battle. As expected, everyone had a temper. No matter how good Nephi's cultivation was, it was inevitable that he would be unhappy when Wang Yu continuously poked at his sore spot. Stinking brat, do you think you can anger me like this? An ant like you doesn't deserve to fight me. Nephi stared fiercely at Wang Yu. Hee. Seeing that Nephi was showing signs of anger, Wang Yu smiled and said, Have you been traumatized by Lord Martial God? Seeing that I'm a martial arts scholar, you don't dare to attack? Old cow, can you stop talking? The others were already on the verge of crying. Wang Yu's attack had hit the nail on the head. It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned martial god, but once he heard the two words martial god, Nephi's hair stood up in anger. He angrily pointed at Wang Yu and shouted, Arrogant martial arts scholar, you forced me to do this. As he spoke, Nephi raised his hand, and a flame as thick as a thumb flew out from his fingertip towards Wang Yu. It's over. Seeing that Wang Yu had finally triggered Nephi's battle mode, everyone felt a chill in their hearts, and their faces showed a look of despair. Chapter 1451. Beep, 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 beep. Just as Wang Yu was provoking the Flame Monarch, a piercing alarm sounded in the testing room of Longting Company's Rebirth. Everyone knew that Rebirth was the most perfect game on the market today. Although it could not be said that there were no bugs, there were very few bugs. Therefore, the staff of the testing team had always been relatively idle, especially at this time when the number of players online was the least. After all, apart from professional players, most players had to work during the day. The sudden sound of the sirens stunned everyone. What's going on? What's going on? After coming back to their senses, everyone looked in the direction of the alarm. When they saw that it was the main system that was alerting them, all the old staff in the testing team felt their hearts skip a beat. Damn, it had been more than half a year since the launch of Rebirth, and the main system's alarm had only sounded a few times. As for why it sounded the previous few times, all the old staff in the testing team knew. At this time, seeing that it was the main system's alarm again, everyone could not help but think of a perverted figure. F***CK. It can't be that kid again, right? Inspector Xiao Zhao frowned and thought to himself. At this time, the staff closest to the main system had already turned on the alarm. Notification. Ingzhou Island Divine Flame Mining Area, Phoenix Palace, a player is challenging the God-tier boss, Flame Monarch, Nebulous F***CK. Hearing the notification, the old staff trembled again. It's really him? Who is it? Seeing the seniors' uneasy looks, the rookies asked in confusion. Sigh. Xiao Zhao held his heart and sighed. He said bitterly, You'll know when you click on it. With doubts, the inspector clicked on the game screen, and then the familiar face of Wang Yu appeared on the big screen. It's really him. It's him again. Why is it always him? Seeing Wang Yu, the old staff in the testing team wanted to cry but had no tears. Everyone knew that when the main system sounded, nothing good would come out. It could not be helped. The high-level boss and characters in the game were carefully designed by the designers. In order to trick the players, the designers could be said to have racked their brains and put in their blood and sweat. In other words, these bosses were the painstaking efforts of the designers. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they were children. Although these things were designed to be destroyed, it was easy to imagine the feeling of watching one's own flesh and blood being destroyed again and again before they could even grow up, especially when the murderer was the same person. This was driving them crazy. Any boss that was alerted by the main system was related to the release of the new expansion pack. If Wang Yu had killed another boss, everyone would have felt their hearts ache. After all, a boss would have to go through it eventually. However, don't provoke these bosses. Don't you know how much effort it takes for the designers to release a new expansion pack? Originally, the patches that everyone had come up with were enough to give the game designer 2 more years of development time. However, with Wang Yu's actions, the game's development speed up again and again. At this rate, the game designer's previous patches would be updated in less than a year. Urging for progress was the same as urging for manuscripts to be updated. It was simply asking for death. If everyone has had a similar experience like me, then you will be able to deeply understand how hateful Wang Yu classmates' actions are. Who is he? The seniors pointed at the large Grandmaster of Combat on the screen with a face full of grief and indignation. The newbie's thirst for knowledge was once again ignited. He's a demon. The seniors gritted their teeth and said with certainty. This kind of person, everyone wanted nothing more than to destroy him. Seeing the seniors lose their composure, the newbies were speechless. At this moment, a bald guy pointed at Nebulous and said, Flame Monarch Nebulous is a celestial boss. In the system that we designed, celestial bosses all have conditions to trigger, right? That's right. Little Zhao said, there are even celestial bosses. Haha. With Little Zhao's affirmation, the bald guy couldn't help but laugh. This group of people is only level, and they want to trigger celestial bosses, huh? However, before the bald guy could finish speaking, Nebulous on the screen suddenly raised his hand and gathered a ball of fire elemental on his finger. Impossible! The bald guy saw this and said in shock, how can this be? This guy called Iron Ox is only level 60. Isn't the minimum condition for Nebulous to trigger level 80? Sigh. Little Zhao shook his head and patted the bald guy's shoulder as if this was a common occurrence. This person is a little special. He must have triggered a hidden condition. No way. The bald guy was surprised. Hidden condition? Did he provoke Nebulous rage? Yes. Little Zhao nodded his head confidently. Senior, you don't seem surprised at how this player could trigger a hidden condition. The bald guy was puzzled by Little Zhao's attitude. Logically speaking, when a player did something that shouldn't be done, Little Zhao should be surprised. Why was he so calm? Surprise. Little Zhao said indifferently, but I've seen more surprises, so I'm not surprised anymore. More surprises? The bald guy was once again confused. Little Zhao pointed at the screen and said, Don't talk, look at the screen. The bald guy turned his head and saw Nebulous shooting a flame at Wang Yu. The Inferno Monarch, Nebulous, was formed from the purest fire elemental in the world. Even though it was sealed, its control over the fire elemental did not decrease at all. This flame was blazing white, and one could tell that it was very powerful. Facing the boss attack, Wang Yu did not dare to take it head-on. He tilted his head slightly to the side, and the flame brushed past his shoulder and hit the Grim Reaper's right hand behind him. 99999, a blood-red number floated up, and the Grim Reaper's right hand turned into a white light on the spot. Damn! In an instant, everyone's jaws dropped to the ground. The difference was that the people on the screen were shocked at the power of the boss attack, while the people off the screen were shocked at how Wang Yu had actually dodged Nebulous attack. 99,999. Although it was also a damage number, it was completely different from a normal loss of health points. This number represented an absolute instant kill. Even though Chuanjin and the people from Hades knew that their opponent was a celestial boss and had their guards up, no one thought that Nebulous would be able to kill him in an instant. Meow, that was too scary. In the examination room, the mood of the examiner was not much calmer than the players on the screen. Chapter 1452. Death Ray was one of the skills that Flame Monarch Nevis was best at. Logically speaking, at Nevis level, a wave of his hand could cast a large-scale Yoi forbidden spell. As a single target skill, Death Ray wasn't that outstanding among Nevis' many skills. However, although it was a single-target skill, its characteristics were very obvious. Not only was its damage comparable to an ultimate skill, but it was also an instant skill. The attack speed was also instantaneous. From the moment Nevis raised his hand to the moment the Grim Reaper's right hand was killed, only a split second had passed. The others didn't even have time to react. This showed how fast this skill was. The reason why Nebulous chose to use this move to attack Wang Yu was firstly because of Wang Yu's provocation. Nebulous's anger level was very high, and he wanted to kill this overconfident reptile with a single finger. Secondly, he wanted to make his position clear. Every injustice had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor. Apart from Wang Yu, no one else was worthy of being her opponent. After all, she was a fire phoenix. She was an arrogant boss. However, Wang Yu was able to dodge Nephisto's death ray with a tilt of her head. This surprised everyone in the inspection team. What was even more frightening was that Wang Yu still looked so calm, which made it hard for the inspection team to accept. This. Is he cheating? Hurry up and lock onto this guy. The bald guy was already stuttering. As he spoke, he asked the team next to him to lock onto Nevis. Little Zhao and the other old employees shook their heads. I don't think so. This is just a normal operation. You guys haven't seen this kid at his most overpowered state. Everyone. Of course, when he saw Nevis' death ray, Wang Yu was also quite surprised. He didn't expect this skill to be activated so quickly. If he hadn't sensed the strong killing intent when Nephisto raised his hand and dodged, it would have been hard to say who would have died. Wang Yu was a martial artist. He naturally understood the principle of speed. It was the same for bosses in games. The activation speed and casting speed of skills determined the strength of the boss. It seemed that this Nevis was far more terrifying than expected. As expected of a celestial boss. He dodged it? Seeing that Wang Yu dodged his attack, Nephius raised his eyebrows slightly. He put away his lazy expression and slowly stood up from his seat. He strolled to a spot not far from Wang Yu and pointed at Wang Yu. You really have some skill as a martial artist. Since that's the case, this king will play with you. As he spoke, he opened his right hand and clenched it. Violent fire elements instantly condensed into a flaming long sword in his hand. Immediately after, he leaped up and brandished the sword towards Wang Yu's head. Wang Yu did not panic in the face of Nephi's attack. He stepped forward with his right foot and followed up with his left. He leaned to the side to avoid the long sword and went straight into Nephi's arms. Aya! This guy is so mischievous. Seeing how arrogant Wang Yu was, the baldy was once again dumbfounded. This is nothing. Don't make such a fuss, okay? Little Zhao was a little helpless. A newbie was a newbie after all. He had no experience at all. Little Zhao didn't know that when he saw Wang Yu fight the Silver Wolf King, he was even more shocked than the baldy. Huh! Nephi saw how fierce Wang Yu was and was immediately shocked. He quickly retracted his sword and jumped back. However, how could Wang Yu be willing to let Nebulous escape so easily? Seeing Nebulous retreat, Wang Yu activated his burst fist and followed closely behind. Both of his palms landed on Nebulous' stomach. Break! Following Wang Yu's shout, a circle of blue light appeared on Wang Yu's palms and an ice dragon flew out. Ice Dragon Burst was one of the Chi Master's advanced skills. It used powerful internal energy to condense an ice dragon to bombard the target. It had knockback and deceleration effect. Although its power was not as high as the Fire Dragon Burst of the same level, its priority was very high. Against a fire-type boss like Nephi, it was even more powerful. Although Nephi was a god-tier boss, his strength was currently sealed. His stats were not over level 80. Being caught off guard, he was naturally unable to block Wang Yu's attack. Roar! With a dragon's roar, the blue ice dragon slammed into Nephi's body. Although Nephi's strength had been greatly reduced, his combat skills were still there. How could he be hit so easily? In addition, the Ice Dragon Burst's cast time was not fast. Even if Wang Yu used it at close range, it would still take a short time to cast it. Against an ordinary opponent, this time was negligible. However, against a God-tier boss, it was not so easy. In the blink of an eye, the moment Wang Yu's Ice Dragon left her hand, Nevis's figure flashed and landed a few meters away. Then, Nevis slashed at Wang Yu with the flaming longsword in his hand. Slash! Following Nephi's angry shout, a flaming sword aura flew out and slashed at the Ice Dragon. Whoosh! A level 80 God-tier boss's sword aura against a level 60 player's Ice Dragon Burst was naturally stronger. Wang Yu's Ice Dragon was directly cut in half by Nephi's sword. The sword aura continued to slash at Wang Yu. Not good. Quickly help old cow. Seeing that Wang Yu was also about to be cut in half, Wuji was shocked. He quickly raised his staff and a holy light descended from the sky. A holy light shield covered Wang Yu. The Grim Reaper's left hand was like a full moon. Bang! A feather arrow as thick as a child's arm was shot at Nephi. Humph! Insignificant skill. Nephi coldly snorted. With a slap of his left hand, a flame flew out and hit the arrow in the Grim Reaper's left hand. The arrow was instantly burned to ashes by the raging fire. At the same time, Nephi's sword aura had already slashed at Wang Yu's body. The priest's invincible holy light was a priest's signature skill. Wuji often used it to self-destruct and had never failed before. However, when Nephi's sword aura arrived, it immediately slashed Wang Yu's and Wuji's holy light shields into spots of light. F***ck. Seeing Wang Yu's and Wuji's invincible holy light being slashed apart by the boss's sword, everyone's eyes almost popped out. Damn, this was the invincible holy light shield. Now, it was destroyed by someone. Was this the power of a god-tier boss? What made everyone feel even more despair was that such a strong person like Wang Yu could not even last 2 rounds against the boss. A god-tier boss was actually so strong. Haha. Seeing that Wang Yu was instantly killed by the boss's sword, the bald-headed little brother laughed proudly. Boss, is this the expert you were talking about? Wasn't he still killed by His Highness Nephi's sword? Oh, hearing the bald-headed little brother's words, everyone else in the examination room had a serious expression. Hey. Even if that kid isn't an expert, we don't have to be like this. The bald-headed little brother thought that little Zhao and the others were angry because Wang Yu was instantly killed. Chapter 1453. Hearing little Zhao's words, the bald guy was slightly stunned. Little Zhao pointed at the screen and said, "Look behind the boss." The bald guy looked in the direction little Zhao was pointing at and saw that Wang Yu had appeared behind Nebulous. His feet were covered in lightning as he stomped down on Nebulous. Thunder stomp. Nebulous was feeling proud of himself for cutting down Wang Yu. He did not realize that the one that had just been cut was actually Wang Yu's clone, so he did not notice that Wang Yu had flashed behind him. Bang! With a loud sound, Wang Yu's feet stomped on the back of Nebula's head. Out of all of Wang Yu's skills, Thunder Stomp was the one that she used the most. It was also the highest leveled and had the highest priority. When Wang Yu's foot descended, lightning flashed. Caught off guard, Nephius lost his balance and nearly fell to the ground. 62214 At the same time, a huge damage number floated above Nebula's head. F***ck. Why is he there? Seeing that not only was Wang Yu not dead, but he had also run behind Nebulous, everyone was shocked. Wang Yu, who was in mid-air, had not yet landed on the ground after his thunder stomp. Immediately after, a white light flashed on his feet as he used his ultimate move, Blink Shadow Chain Kick, and another kick landed on Nebulous's lower back. In Rebirth, bosses had something similar to a shield warrior's block value. It was called willpower. Willpower was related to a boss's defense against the player's navigation skill and resistance against crowd control skills. Once a boss's willpower was empty, its defense and resistance would be at their weakest. Up until now, there were only two ways to empty a boss's willpower. The first was to stun the boss, and the second was to do what Wang Yu was doing and make the boss lose its balance. After losing its balance, the boss would basically be in a helpless state. Naturally, it would not be able to block the player's attack. Therefore, Wang Yu's flickering shadow chain kick dealt damage that no one had ever heard of before. 271314. The huge number was shocking to the eye. Wang Yu's kick was a 6-digit number. The power of line-ending kick was undeniable, but even so, it was quite terrifying to be able to kick a god-tier boss that was 20 levels higher than him. Even those from the Chuanjian world who had seen Wang Yu's heaven-shaking palm strike were scared witless, much less those from the Netherworld King realm. As for the inspection team members in front of the screen, they were so shocked that their jaws dropped to the ground. They didn't know what to say. After coming to his senses, the bald man cried out in despair, How is this possible? Quick, check this kid's data. 6 digits of damage at level 60. Does he really think we're useless? Holy shit. The inspector next to him fumbled for a while before a look of horror appeared on his face again. What? Is this grandson using a cheat code? The bald young man rushed to the computer and saw a line of words on the screen. The account's data is normal. There is no overflow. Looking at the results on the screen, the bald young man was completely petrified. Grandmasters of combat were not strong damage output professions. Although Shadow Chain Kick was known as the most explosive skill at level 60, with the data of a level 60 player, it would at most deal around 60,000 to 100,000 damage. After all, the HP of a level 60 shield warrior was only around 150,000. It was not right to kick a tank. Wang Yu's kick had dealt nearly 3 times the damage. What the F***ck? If it was a cheat, it would be fine. At least it could be explained clearly. But what kind of situation was this when there was no abnormality in the data? This was simply crazy. If he could really do this with his own strength, this guy was too terrifying. Sigh, another crazy one. Looking at the stunned bald young man in front of the screen, little Zhao laughed bitterly and shook his head helplessly. On the screen, Nebulous was kicked to the ground by Wang Yu. He rolled on the ground and successfully recovered. At this moment, Nebulous's face no longer had the arrogance from before. Instead, it was replaced by embarrassment and anger. How could a proud phoenix be trampled by a mortal? But at this moment, Wang Yu casually snapped his fingers. Break. An explosion sounded and Nebulous's body swayed from the explosion. 271314. Another huge damage floated up above Nephus's head, and the health bar above his head visibly dropped. Adding the damage from before, Wang Yu's kick dealt 540,000 damage. The test team members watched with heavy hearts while the underworld players felt chills down their spines. 540,000. There was someone he could not insta-kill? Motherf ****. No wonder the people of Blood Alliance said that all were equal beneath the feet of an Iron Bull. They had even laughed at the Blood Alliance players for being useless. But after seeing this scene today, the people from Underworld finally understood what the Blood Alliance players meant. This wasn't an exaggeration at all. Despicable ants. Nebulous was a proud god-tier boss, and he was also the most arrogant fire phoenix. One could imagine how he felt after being beaten up so badly by Wang Yu. Wuji and the others could feel Nebulous's anger from a dozen meters away. Nebulous looked around and said angrily, "You despicable ants, since you want to play so much, then I will accompany you to the end." As he said this, he opened his left hand and a bunch of dancing flames flew out. They flew to the 2 flame beast statues on the sides of the palace and entered. Voila! The flame beast statues on the sides of the palace opened their eyes after absorbing the fire energy. At the same time, the flames on their bodies became real flames. These giant beasts were actually alive. Damn, in the end, women were really unreasonable. Nebulous blamed the reason he was beaten up by Wang Yu on Wuji and the others. Seeing this, Wuji and the others were about to cry, D*MN. What does this have to do with us? We weren't the ones who beat you up. It's against the law to just watch. Reasoning with women. As a senior single dog, even someone as smart as Wuji would make some low-level mistake. Nebulous ignored everyone's dissatisfaction. He clenched his fist and the flame beasts jumped up as if they had received an order, pouncing towards Wuji and the others. Seeing that Nebulous had such a method, Wang Yu was speechless. He was about to step forward to help his companions. Where are you going? Nebulous raised his sword and blocked in front of Wang Yu. Every debt has a debtor. We haven't settled our debts yet, don't even think about running away. Wang Yu looked at the angry Nebulous and smiled. He switched his weapon to a sword and said, If that's the case, then please. Chapter 1454. Wang Yu was a martial artist. Being fearless was the basic quality of a martial artist. Ever since Wang Yu entered the game, he had overcome all obstacles. No matter how many enemies there were or how strong they were, as long as they dared to challenge Wang Yu would never be afraid. Even if it was the king of close combat, Dragon Emperor Dales at his peak, Wang Yu would still dare to fight him head-on, let alone Nephi who had been sealed and whose strength had dropped to level 80. Of course, if he dared to fight him head-on, he would also have the strength to back it up. With Wang Yu's ability, there really wasn't anyone in the entire game that could make Wang Yu take them seriously. If it wasn't for the level and attribute restrictions, in terms of technique, it was hard to say who would have won the duel with Dales. Nephi was just a long-range boss, yet he dared to challenge Wang Yu. Wang Yu would naturally satisfy him. What does he mean by this? Seeing Wang Yu pull out his sword and make a provocative gesture towards Nephi, the people in the assessment team were a little confused. This guy isn't going to duel Nephi, is he? Although the older members of the assessment team knew how strong Wang Yu was, this time Wang Yu was facing a god-tier monster, and he had brought a team with him. So, everyone instinctively thought that Nephi would be beaten up by the group, and that Wang Yu was just playing the role of pulling aggro. Who knew that Wang Yu would be so ferocious, actually dragging Nephi to a duel? As for the experts in the team behind him, they were completely reduced to making up the numbers. Meow, who was the real monster here? The people in the assessment team wanted to cry but had no tears. Just as everyone was feeling anxious, Nephi had already made his move on the screen. Humph! Nephius glared coldly at Wang Yu and raised his sword without saying anything. No matter if it was speed or strength, there was nothing to complain about. However, compared to Dales, who was a proper melee boss, he was much weaker. He only used simple slashes, and stabs. It was a waste of his overpowered attribute. An opponent of this level was terrifying because as long as he was hit, he could be instantly killed. It was easy to say that it was simple. As long as he didn't get hit, everything would be fine. Attack power was not the same as combat power. No matter how high his damage was, it would be a waste of energy if he couldn't hit his target. Wang Yu's eyes tightened when he saw Nebulous's sword stabbing towards him. He took half a step back. Just as Nebulous's sword was about to stab him, Wang Yu's body slightly leaned to the side and dodged Nebulous's sword. At the same time, his right hand pushed the sword forward, blocking Nebulous's weapon and pulling it forward. Nebulous's sword didn't stop there. When he was pulled by Wang Yu's sword, he couldn't help but take a step forward. At the same time, Wang Yu's legs turned and he moved to Nebulous's side. He pressed his left hand on Nebulous's shoulder and pushed forward. Nebulous didn't pay attention and lost his balance because of Wang Yu's push. However, a God-tier boss was still a God-tier boss. Just as Nebulous was about to fall to the ground, Nebulous's body swayed and completed a quick recover. He pressed his left hand on the ground and used his wrist as the axis to turn his body and do a somersault. At the same time, he waved the sword in his right hand and a crescent-shaped flame aura slashed towards Wang Yu's waist. Shameless! You can even do this! Seeing Nebulous's sword aura, Wang Yu was speechless. He was at the Wuxiao level, but his opponent was at the Xuanhuan level. Who was he going to complain to? In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu leaped over the top of the battle energy chop. Nebulous saw this and smiled. He raised his finger and a death ray shot towards Wang Yu, who was in the air. As expected of the highest AI in the game, Nebulous was really cunning. A Grandmaster of Combat was a profession that specialized in agility, and Wang Yu had utilized the word agility to its limits. Although Nebulous and Wang Yu had only fought for 2 rounds, the AI NPC's learning ability was extremely strong. After 2 rounds, Nebulous felt that Wang Yu was difficult to deal with. Wang Yu's strange fighting style was something that Nebulous had never heard of before. Therefore, if he wanted to attack Wang Yu, he first had to restrict Wang Yu's movements. Obviously, it was not as convenient for a player to move in the air as it was on the ground. Little did he know that Wang Yu had Qin Gong. Wang Yu took a step in the air, and with a tilt of his body, he once again dodged Nephi's death ray. Nebulous saw this and was slightly startled. He casually waved his hand and threw 5 head-sized fireballs at Wang Yu. Wang Yu didn't panic. His right wrist lightly shook and 5 sword flowers appeared. Bang 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 bang! A series of explosions sounded. Before the 5 fireballs could reach Wang Yu had destroyed them all. But the smoke from the fireballs hadn't dissipated yet. Nebulous snapped his fingers and a fire dragon shot out from under Wang Yu. In an instant it engulfed Wang Yu. Bang! Within the flames, Wang Yu turned into a pile of fragments. It's a clone. Nebulous saw this and quickly looked up. He didn't know when Wang Yu had jumped above him. Wang Yu's big foot was covered in lightning as it stepped towards his head. Nebulous had experienced Wang Yu's thunder stomp before. He knew how powerful this move was. The damage wasn't important. What was important was that it could knock someone back. With his status, it would be embarrassing to be kicked back by a player. With no other choice, Mephisto could only raise both of his hands and form a flaming shield to block Wang Yu's attack. Boom! Wang Yu stepped on the shield, and sparks flew from Wang Yu's stomp. Wang Yu was once again pushed into the air. Flame tornado! Seeing that Wang Yu was once again stuck in the air, Nebulous roared and raised his right hand. With Nebulous as the center, a flaming tornado swept towards Wang Yu from below. Wang Yu used Qin Gong and leaped several meters into the air. Then, he pressed his hands down and sent out a Qi wave. Using the recoil from the Qi wave, Wang Yu jumped 10 meters into the air. Then, a pair of white wings extended from his back, and he floated in the air. Angel's wings. Seeing Wang Yu's wings, Nebulous was surprised. Then, he revealed a treacherous smile. Nebulous' smile caused Wang Yu to feel a chill down his spine. Before Wang Yu could react, Nebulous spread out his arms with his palms facing up. In a split second, countless head-sized fireballs flew towards Wang Yu. F***ck. So despicable. Seeing this scene, even someone as cultured as Wang Yu couldn't help but spit out a curse. The members of the inspection team, who were staring at the big screen, finally relaxed when they saw this scene. They thought to themselves that the boss had finally gotten back at them. Especially little Zhao. At this moment, it was as if he had defeated Wang Yu. With a face full of pride, he said, "Ha ha! I didn't expect this kid to be defeated. After all, he's only a level 60 player. It's a bit difficult for him to challenge a god-tier boss. Yeah. The bald-headed guy also agreed. I have to admit that this player is ridiculously strong. However, he's still lacking when facing the highest level boss that we designed. Chapter 1455. Since ancient times, casting speed, and casting distance were the three main factors in a mage's battle. As a god-tier boss, Nephi was at the top of the game. Naturally, he could cast any spell instantly, including forbidden spells. Even so, there was a huge difference in the casting speed of spells. Not all spells could be cast with a single thought like Death Ray. For example, Fireball, a spell with a relatively slow trajectory, could be cast instantly by ordinary players, but its hit rate was pitiful. It was the same for Nephi as a god-tier boss. Most spells needed some time to cast. Thus, casting distance became the key factor. It was easy to dodge spells if the target was too far away, but it was even worse for Wang Yu who was too close. If it was an ordinary player, Nephi would not be afraid. But was Wang Yu an ordinary player? This guy's attacks were like water, continuous and pervasive. If there was a slight opening, it would be drilled. After all, Nephi was a mage boss. In close combat, he naturally could not completely suppress Wang Yu. Facing Wang Yu's attacks, many spells would be forcefully interrupted by Wang Yu before they could be cast. Even Nephi was a little regretful. Why did he have to compete with this guy? Now, he was in such an awkward situation. He could not even cast the spells he was best at. Who would have thought that just as Nephi was feeling depressed, Wang Yu would actually fly into the sky to avoid the flaming whirlwind? For a mage, as long as they had a perfect casting space, there was no difference between horizontal and vertical distance. At this time, the three main factors had been gathered. Nephi's strength was finally fully released. When Wang Yu saw this scene, he also knew that he had miscalculated by hastily distancing himself from Nephi. Humph. Seeing the sky full of fireballs surrounding Wang Yu, Nephi smiled proudly. He clenched his right hand and shouted, "Stars of Fury!" Instantly, the sky full of fireballs smashed towards Wang Yu from all directions like meteors. To put it bluntly, this so-called Stars of Fury was actually summoning multiple fireballs at once to attack a target. Although the fireball spell wasn't considered powerful as a mage's entry spell, it was a different story if the person casting the spell was Nephius. Moreover, there were 60 to 70 fireballs flying towards Wang Yu. Even if the person casting the spell was an ordinary player, 60 to 70 fireballs would be enough to make Wang Yu suffer. Boom. Wang Yu was engulfed by the fireballs that filled the sky, and only a series of explosions could be heard. Hearing the firework-like explosion of the Stars of Fury explosion in the air, a proud expression appeared on Mephisto's face. Humph! They were just slightly stronger ants. In the presence of a true god. Pop! Just as he was feeling pleased with himself, a strange sound suddenly entered his ears. Hearing the sound, Mephisto raised his head subconsciously. He saw a golden protective shield appear where Wang Yu was, bouncing off all his fireballs. It's a chi shield. Seeing Wang Yu's protective shield on the screen, everyone in the inspection team had a surprised expression on their faces. This kid was really difficult to deal with. He actually had a skill like a chi shield. But so what? Now that the distance between Wang Yu and Mephisto had increased, even if there was a chi shield, he would only die 3 seconds later. It was obvious that Mephisto thought so too. Seeing that his magic was bounced off, Mephisto stared at Wang Yu and smiled. What an annoying guy! Same to you. Wang Yu replied, not to be outdone. He spread his wings and flew towards Mephisto. But so what? Mephisto's figure floated back a few meters, and once again reached out his hand to aim at Wang Yu. How many more protective shields can you have? Saying that, Mephisto gathered magic in his hand and cast the Stars of Fury explosion again. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Countless fireballs shot out from Mephisto's palm and smashed towards Wang Yu's body. Wang Yu did not panic. He held the longsword in his right hand in front of his chest, and with a flip of his left hand, a short sword appeared in his hand. Without dodging, he rushed towards Mephisto's fireballs. Has he given up on himself? The bald guy was puzzled by Wang Yu's actions. With Wang Yu's control and flying speed, he might be able to dodge this wave of fireballs if he flew backwards, but wouldn't rushing forward be suicidal? However, the next scene directly blinded everyone's eyes. Just when Mephisto's fireballs were less than 2 meters away from Wang Yu's left hand protected his body, and the longsword in his right hand moved forward. With a flick of his wrist, several sword flowers appeared and pierced into the fireballs in front of him. Low-level spells like fireballs were the same as icicles. They would explode upon contact, and as long as they met an obstacle, they would automatically explode. Bang, 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 several fireballs exploded in front of Wang Yu. But Wang Yu's footsteps didn't stop, and his longsword didn't stop. He kept stabbing and stabbing, forcibly creating a blank space in the midst of the fireballs. And F***CK. This time, the staff of the inspection team couldn't remain calm. Even little Zhao, who had seen Wang Yu's methods, couldn't help but drop his jaw. It had to be known that under normal circumstances, there were only 2 ways to deal with a spell like Stars of Fury. The first was to use a shield or an obstacle to block it, and the second was to be fast enough to shake off these fireballs. But Wang Yu had taken a different path, and actually relied on a sword to use a physical attack to forcibly break this spell, let alone in Rebirth. This kind of behavior was unheard of even in the history of the game. Too abnormal. This guy is too abnormal. The staff of the inspection team couldn't find the words to describe how powerful Wang Yu was. A single player had scared a group of GMs to this extent. This was unprecedented for Wang Yu, especially the bald-headed man in front of the screen. He had already become Wang Yu's fan, and he was just short of kowtowing to the screen. After all, youngsters were incomparably passionate about games, and when they saw an expert, they would naturally worship him from the bottom of their hearts. Wang Yu's speed didn't slow down because of the fireballs. In the blink of an eye, he passed through the dense fireballs and arrived in front of Nephi. Seeing Wang Yu break through his spell, Nephi's pupils shrank, and he was extremely shocked. He hurriedly clenched his right hand and shouted, "Withdraw!" Following Nephi's command, the fireballs that hadn't been destroyed by Wang Yu immediately surrounded Wang Yu from all directions. Facing the incoming fireball, Wang Yu calmly swung the longsword in her hand, drawing out arcs of sword light. Chapter 1456. Pung 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 pung. Wherever Wang Yu's sword went, balls of fire would explode, but Wang Yu wasn't harmed in the slightest. By the time Nephi recovered from her shock, Wang Yu had already rushed to within 3 meters of her. In a panic, Nephi hurriedly raised her sword and stabbed at Wang Yu. Wang Yu swung the short sword in her left hand, deflecting Nebula's long sword. She then thrust her right hand forward, stabbing Nebula's towering chest with her sword. Pooh! The blade pierced through Nephi's body and came out from her back. 21145 A damage number floated up. For Nephi's long health bar, 20,000 health was just a drop in the bucket. However, the place where Wang Yu stabbed was a little hard for Nephi to accept. When a woman was ruthless to herself, it could be considered extremely terrifying. Despicable! In a rage, Nephi roared. Her left hand grabbed Wang Yu's sword and pulled it in front of her, while her right hand stabbed back. Even an expert like Wang Yu could not help but feel a chill down his spine when he saw such a tough fighting style. After all, Nephi was a boss. If he stabbed her, he would lose a layer of health. If she stabbed him, he would only be left with a layer of health. In the blink of an eye, Wang Yu grabbed the sword with one hand and leaped up. Using the momentum, his body moved horizontally, parallel to Nephi's sword. At the same time, Wang Yu kicked out with both of her legs, kicking Nephi's face. Everyone knew that the effects of force were mutual. Nephi grabbed Wang Yu's sword and pulled it in her direction. She had already used a lot of strength. Even if Wang Yu didn't use her own strength, her kicks were still very heavy. Nephi didn't pay attention and was kicked by Wang Yu. Wang Yu seized the opportunity and suddenly kicked out with both feet, using Thunder Stamp. His big feet were covered in lightning as they pasted onto Nephisto's face. Under Wang Yu's previous attacks, Nephi's mental fortitude had been greatly reduced. Furthermore, Thunder Stamp had a powerful repelling effect. Nephi's involuntarily let go of Wang Yu's sword and was kicked back a few steps. For a moment, he seemed to be unable to stand steadily. Wang Yu snatched back his sword and landed on the ground. Without waiting for Nebulous to stabilize his body, Wang Yu didn't stop at all. His feet kicked off the ground, and his whole body flew over Nebulous' head like an arrow and landed on Nebulous' shoulder. Then, Wang Yu grabbed Nephisto's long hair with his left hand and wrapped his sword around Nephisto's neck with his right hand. Poochie! 144544 The sharp blade of the sword slid across Nephilim's pure white throat, drawing out a huge number. Everyone in front of the screen broke out in a cold sweat. Damn, slit the throat. Luckily, he was fighting a boss of virtual data. If this was a living person, this slash would definitely cut off his head. To be able to use such a precise and ruthless method, just what kind of background did this bastard have? With his throat slit, Nephisto naturally wouldn't give up. He stretched out his hands and feet to grab Wang Yu on his shoulder. Ha ha! Wang Yu smiled. He jumped down from Nephisto's shoulder and landed on Nephisto's back. At the same time, he stepped on Nephisto's calf. His left hand let go of Nephisto's hair, and he grabbed Nephisto's chin and used Ferocious Tiger Strike. The chin was one of the weakest parts of a creature. After being grabbed by Ferocious Tiger Strike, Nephisto didn't even have time to groan before he was dragged to the ground by Wang Yu. Without waiting for Nephisto to recover, Wang Yu stepped heavily on Nephisto's chest. He held the hilt of his sword with both hands and aimed at Nephisto's throat, slashing from top to bottom. This was a game. For the sake of the healthy bodies of young people, they would never exaggerate the battle scene to be overly bloody. However, even if Wang Yu's action of slit the throat didn't exaggerate the spurting of blood, this kind of violence made people instinctively feel uncomfortable in their throat. Pooh! 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 The heavy sound of a throat being pierced was transmitted to everyone's ears through the screen. Looking at the cruel Wang Yu on the screen, everyone couldn't help but swallow their saliva, including little Zhao and the other old employees. No one would have thought that as a powerful god boss, Nephisto would actually be trampled on by a level 60 player. That's right, it was trampled. A one-sided trample. The degree of misery could definitely be rated as one of the year's ugliest bosses. Was a Grandmaster of Combat such a strong profession? It should be nerfed in the next version. The GMs in the working group couldn't help but have this thought appear in their mind. The pitiful Grandmaster of Combat players couldn't even raise their heads in this reborn world. The crazy designers still wanted to nerf them. The players didn't even know where the designers' hatred towards the Grandmasters of Combat came from. After Nephisto was closed in by Wang Yu, this was the beginning of his nightmare. On the screen, the pitiful Nephisto was like a wooden stake and sandbag on Wang Yu's balcony. He was thrown around by Wang Yu, from the ground to the sky, and from mid-air to the ground. His fists were like a storm, accurately landing on Nephisto's throat, ribs, face, and other soft parts, excluding his chest, because the flesh was too thick to move. The HP bar on Nephisto's head dropped at a speed visible to the naked eye. During this period, Mephisto also thought of resisting. However, every time she felt that she was about to escape, Wang Yu's grab and control skills would always grab Mephisto back. It couldn't be helped. It wasn't like Wang Yu hadn't seen how scary Mephisto was after she pulled away. How could he let her escape from his control? In terms of control, the king of close combat, Dales, at level 200, couldn't gain an advantage against Wang Yu, let alone Mephisto, who wasn't good at close combat and was only a level 80 ranged boss. Under Wang Yu's continuous attacks that were like sticky candy, Nephi simply gave up resisting. His state was very much like the pitiful person who had his hands off the keyboard and closed his eyes to wait for death after being attacked by an expert in online games. Looking at the increasing combo count of Wang Yu on the screen, as well as the rapidly decreasing HP bar on Mephisto's head, the staff members were petrified and couldn't speak for a long time. The staff members had also thought of various ways that a celestial boss could die, but they never thought that a celestial boss would be killed by a grandmaster of combat. Moreover, Mephisto was being abused from both sides. They had created this world, but now their world view was shattered by a player. Looking at Wuji's side, the battle was nearing its end. Although there were many of these fire beasts, their strength was only at the level of the flame guards. Chuanjin and the people from Hades were all top experts, especially the people from Hades, whose strength could be ranked among the top among professional players. It was just killing an elite monster that was 20 levels higher, so naturally, it wasn't too difficult. Moreover, the experts had the cooperation of different professions, so their combat power was several times higher than fighting alone. Chapter 1457. As the saying goes, when gods fight, mortals suffer. With Wang Yu's way of fighting the boss, even top experts like Hades King and Chuanjin would not be able to interfere. After all, Wang Yu's fighting rhythm was not something that ordinary people could keep up with. If they went up to help and interrupted Wang Yu's rhythm, then it would be considered as trouble. It would be better not to help. Helpless, Wuji and the others could only stand at the side and watch silently. Looking at Nephi, who was pressed to the ground by Wang Yu and couldn't open his eyes, everyone from Hades King's world was in a mess. Damn it, this group of people could be considered the top strength in the game. They couldn't even fight an elite-tier monster with a higher level, but this guy directly defeated a god-tier boss. Damn it, on the other hand, everyone from Quanzhen strongly condemned Wang Yu's action of pressing Nephi to the ground and rubbing him. Nephi was a beautiful big sister after all. It was a bit too much for him to be so ruthless. TSK, what a straight man. Ming Du, Mr. Wuji, and the others all sympathized with Nephi's experience. However, there were also exceptions. For example, to place one's pride looked at things from a very strange angle. He looked at Wang Yu with reverence and said, "I really envy Uncle Nyo for being able to press a beauty under his body." As expected, children were children. Their thinking was so childish. Chun Xiang smiled wretchedly and said, "Envy me. You have to work hard too. If you don't suffer, how can you be a man above others? Man above others. TSK. Hearing Chun Xiang's words, everyone simultaneously gave him the middle finger. This old man. Seeing that not only were the Chuanjin people not surprised by Wang Yu's method of fighting the boss, but they were even more surprised as they talked and laughed as if they were used to it, they were even more surprised. Could it be that this group of bastards were blind? Couldn't they be more serious? Thinking of this, Grim Reaper's left hand could not help but point at Wang Yu and ask Wuji, "Aren't you surprised to see this?" Surprised. Wuji spread his hands and said, "But it'll be fine once you get used to it. Just get used to it, just get used to it." Hearing Wuji's explanation, everyone in the Netherworld King realm burst into tears. Fuck, they were already used to this. Just as everyone was pointing fingers at Wang Yu and Nebulous, a dazzling flame suddenly flashed. A fiery red barrier burst out from Nebula's body. Pa! A powerful force slammed into Wang Yu's body, sending Wang Yu flying several meters away. Everyone glanced at Nephi's health bar, which had already dropped below 30%. They couldn't help but exclaim, "Not good! The boss is going berserk." At the same time, within the protective shield, Nephius stood up, the clothes and armor on his body falling off piece by piece. F***ck me, there's such a benefit? The gazes of everyone from Quan Zhen were immediately drawn over. To place one's pride, this good-for-nothing, had a nosebleed flowing down his lips. The scene had already reached the upper limit of the game's gory content. The ones who were the most conflicted were those from the Netherworld King realm. These fellows boasted of themselves as righteous and noble people. If they didn't look at this sort of free benefit, wouldn't their hearts itch? If they did, wouldn't they become like the Chuanjian sect? Thus, the group of people covered their eyes with one hand and opened their fingers from time to time. It was very comical. Of course, this was proper documentary literature, not some kind of holy book. This game was also a game with the same values as the author, so it naturally wouldn't show too much content that was not suitable for children. In just a few seconds, all the clothes on Nephi's body had disappeared, and the color of the protective shield had become thicker. Nephi's had also turned into the silhouette of Anna. No one saw what they wanted to see. Clang! With a mournful cry of a phoenix, the protective shield shattered, and a huge flaming phoenix flew out from within. Under normal circumstances, creatures like phoenixes don't dare to cry out when they see Uncle Nyo, so I don't know what a phoenix should be called. I'll rule it out. In any case, it's not meow meow meow. Of course, I know that there are cultivators and powerful beings in the universe among my readers. If anyone has seen a phoenix before, you can tell me what a phoenix should be called. Let's get back to the main topic. F***ck, the boss has revealed its true form. Quick, don't let it fly. Wuji saw this and immediately gave everyone an order. In Rebirth, regardless of whether it was a small monster or a boss, as long as it could fly, it would definitely be the most difficult to deal with. Although everyone from Quan Zhen knew how to fly, the average level of the players was relatively low. They hadn't learned any skills to fight in the air, so in most cases, everyone was used to fighting on land. Their aerial combat skills were extremely low. After all, close combat professions like warriors and assassins had more than half of their skills that couldn't be used in the air. Mages didn't have many restrictions on their skills, but their mobility was much worse than when they were on land. Nephi was a god-tier boss. Looking at the shape of its wings, one could tell that it was a professional air force. Under normal circumstances, an expert like Wang Yu wouldn't be able to handle it even if it left the ground. Now that it had revealed its true form, what could the others do even if they could fly? Without a front row, and having difficulty moving around, flying up would also be seeking death. The best way was to leave it on the ground. Pika Pikachu. Mingdu's left hand formed a seal, and his right hand raised the staff. Lightning flashed on the staff, and a lightning bolt as thick as a bucket fell from the sky towards Nephi. After Nephi transformed into a phoenix, its body was much bigger. Although its movement speed was much faster than before, it also became a much bigger target. Mingdu's ability to predict was also limited compared to Chun Xiang's weakness. Boom! With a loud sound, this violent thunder spell accurately landed on Nephi's head. Violent Thunder Spell was a mage's strongest single-target skill. Other than having a strong magic attack, it also had a certain suppressive effect. However, normal players and monsters would respawn immediately after being hit by this lightning, so the suppressive effect wouldn't show up normally. At this time, it had a miraculous effect on Nephi. Mephisto was just about to take off, but before he could even take to the skies, he was struck by a bolt of lightning from Mingdu. With a sad cry, he went from a phoenix dancing in the 9 heavens to a goose falling from the sand entanglement of thorns. Rise. Just as Nephi was falling, Chun Xiang smashed the ground with his staff. A green light flashed on the ground, and thick vines twisted and rose into the air, wrapping around Nephi's claws. 1,000 miles of ice. At the same time, Rakshasa's awakening skill was unleashed. Light blue frost instantly covered the ground. Actually, 1,000 miles of ice could only freeze targets on the ground. It had no effect on monsters in the air. However, Chun Xiang's vines had wrapped around Nephi's legs. The frost of 1,000 miles of ice flowed along the vines and instantly froze Nephi and the vines into an ice sculpture. Chapter 1458. It had to be said that as the top experts in the industry, although Spring and the others were not as strong as Wang Yu, they were still outstanding. Strike, bind, freeze. This set of coordination was flawless. It could be said to be perfect. Even the eyes of the assessment team, who had just been shocked by Wang Yu, could not help but light up as a sense of gratification welled up in their hearts. This was a serious game. It seemed that there were still normal people in this world. However, perfect coordination was one thing, and the effect of control was another. The difference between a beast and a humanoid boss was not just in terms of form. Although humanoid bosses were agile, flexible in their combat style, and could use many skills, their attack priority was far inferior to bestial bosses. The main difference was that bestial bosses had high attack priority, so they had over 80% resistance against players' crowd control skills. In other words, a skill that could control a beast boss for 10 seconds would only control it for 2 seconds at most. It might not even have any effect at all. As a mythological beast, her immunity to control skills had naturally reached an extremely high level. Even if she was only level 80, and she was being controlled by ice magic that could restrain fire, the effect of this control was still not as good as one would imagine. Seeing Nevis get frozen by Rakshasa's 1,000 miles of ice, before everyone could rejoice, the flames on Nevis's body suddenly turned. Pissed, at the same time, the piercing sound of water being poured into the flames could be heard. Nevis's holy body turned into a cloud of white mist. F***ck. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but be stunned. Rakshasa's current mood was definitely F***ket up. 1,000 miles of ice was an ice mage's ultimate skill. It had 15 seconds of control over the target. However, against Nevis, it did not even last for 2 seconds before the flames on Nevis's body vaporized her into a cloud of mist. This was only a level 80 boss. One could imagine how strong Nevis would be if he was at the peak of level 200. Even Wang Yu could not help but be speechless. Just now, when Wang Yu and Nephis had fought one-on-one, Nephis had still been in his human form, and all of his abilities were based on his skills. Under Wang Yu's storm-like control attacks, Nephis had been beaten to the point where he couldn't even retaliate. But now, after transforming into his phoenix form, his priority had broken through the heavens. It was as if he had an innate super body. Even the 1,000 miles of ice, which could completely restrain the fire attribute, was negligible. It was completely impossible for him to attack as wantonly as he did before. Meow, as expected of a god-tier boss, its strength was terrifying. You bunch of ants! You have angered this king. Heavenly fire annihilation. Nephius let out a mournful roar. His figure instantly rose over a dozen meters, flying out of the attack range of Mingdu, Spring Soar, and the other mages. Afterwards, he spread his wings, and flames poured down from his wings like a waterfall. F***ck. Quick, quick! Find cover! Seeing Nephius attack, everyone immediately panicked. Even Wuji, who was usually calm, had beads of sweat on his forehead. F***ck, a god-tier boss was really generous. His first move was a full-screen attack. Players who had played online games knew that a full-screen attack couldn't be dodged. Facing such an attack, there was only one way, and that was to find an obstacle in the scene to use as cover to block the skill. However, Nepheus was a so-called birdman. Her Phoenix Palace had a very wide field of view. There wasn't even a pillar in the huge palace, so how could there be any cover? This isn't scientific, this isn't scientific. How can such a huge palace be built without any support? As a construction engineer, Spring Soar was very dissatisfied. Unveil couldn't help but despise science, my ass. Can science explain this fire-breathing phoenix? It can, Bao San said. In theory, as long as humans can grasp the elemental and molecular structure of matter, they can do this. Hearing Bao San's words, everyone from the Underworld King was dumbfounded. TSK, TSK, TSK. This group of lunatics really lives up to their reputation. Even in the face of death, they still have the mood to talk nonsense. Bullsh *T. Wuji glared at the two of them and said, Second brother, you and Shura go up. Medicine Master, prepare the Holy Light Shield. Enlao and Shura received the order and quickly stepped forward, raising their shields horizontally and activating shield wall. Wuji and Medicine Master raised their staffs, and each threw a holy light shield on top of their head. Seeing this, Chuanjin and the people from the Underworld King all gathered under the shields. Since there was no cover, then they would create one. The reason why Nepheus could break the Holy Light Shield was because Wuji's Holy Light Shield was on Wang Yu's doppelganger. This skill had no effect on doppelgangers, but for players, the Holy Light Shield had an invincibility effect and could block all damage for a short period of time. Under the buff of Shield Wall, Enlao and Shura's shields were more than 2 meters high and 5 to 6 meters long. It was more than enough to cover a dozen people. Whoosh! Just as the two formed shield wall, Nepheus's flames landed on the shield and were all bounced off. In an instant, the entire Phoenix Palace was covered in flames. Looking at the sea of fire around them that was like purgatory, everyone was stunned. Damn, was this the strength of a god-tier boss? It was actually so strong. This Nepheus was really reckless. If he didn't have low HP, he wouldn't have played. If he had transformed into a phoenix earlier, everyone would probably be dead. Little did they know that Nepheus was currently in a sealed state. The phoenix form could only be activated when his HP dropped to 30%. To change forms as he pleased, he had to be at the peak of level 200. Besides, if Nepheus had level 200 strength, would he need to transform to fight these level 50 and 60 players? Skyfire Extinguisher was not only a full-screen attack skill, but also a continuous damage output skill. Nepheus spread his wings and flames fell from the sky. The sky of flames lasted for a full 10 seconds before it stopped. Chuanjin and the people from the Underworld King secretly broke out in a cold sweat. The priest's holy light spell only lasted for a total of 15 seconds. If this turkey spat 2 more times, everyone would probably become a family bucket. Ha 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 ha. A tiny insect dares to challenge a god? Now you know how powerful this king is. Killing people and setting fires was really something that made people feel happy. Looking at the sea of fire on the ground, Nepheus flapped his wings twice and laughed proudly. Hearing Nepheus's laughter, everyone was speechless. The image of Nepheus as a god-tier boss instantly collapsed in everyone's hearts. Was this the arrogant phoenix from before? She was clearly a shrew who won in cursing. Mingdu was a straightforward person. He couldn't help but shout, "What are you laughing at? It's so unpleasant." Yee. Chapter 1459. You guys didn't die? Looking at the lively Wang Yu's group below, Nephi was shocked and angry. He was shocked because these players were really difficult to deal with. They were still alive after being burned by him. As for being angry, most people had a side that was not known to others. A girl who looked clean and tidy on the surface could be a tomboy at home. It was obvious that Nephi was such a bird. In front of outsiders, he would act high and mighty. When he was alone, he would reveal his true nature. Wang Yu and the others had clearly seen Nebulous's cursing behavior and remembered it. At this moment, Nebulous was like an otaku whose e-drive had been opened. A sense of shame arose from within him. If not for the fact that the fire phoenix was fiery red, everyone would have been able to see Nephi's flushed face. Good. Just a little more. Everyone was still fearful of Nephi's attack. Did you all hear it? Ha ha ha. Wuji touched the back of his head and said, "If we said we didn't hear it, would you believe us?" "No." Nephi shook his head. "Then that's it. We all heard it." Wuji laughed. "Damn it. You all have to die. Sea of purgatory flames." After receiving Wuji's affirmation, Nephi went berserk. The flames on his body seemed to explode and spread out. Then, Nephi opened his mouth and flames descended from the sky again. This time, Nebulous's flames didn't cover the entire area like before. Instead, they formed a fan shape from Nebulous's mouth and sprayed towards the Chuanjin people. F***CK. At this time, Chuanjin and the Hades players no longer had the holy light shield that guaranteed invincibility. Yin Lao, Air and Shura did not dare to resist the attack of a god-tier boss. Hence, without another word, everyone ran towards Nephisto's direction. After all, this attack wasn't a full-screen skill. As long as you avoided the area it covered, you would be fine. Nephthys' attack was fan-shaped. The further back you ran, the larger the attack range. The closer you ran to Nephthys, the smaller the attack range. Warriors and paladins had skills like colliding charge, assassins had swift steps, archers were naturally fast, and grandmasters of combat also had movement skills like collapsing fist. Naturally, they were able to dodge the attacks with some difficulty. The only pitiful ones were the mages. Wuji and Mingdu were fine. One had second invincibility and the other had teleportation. Mingdu jumped out of the attack range immediately, and Wuji also rushed out leisurely. Chun Xiang, Rakshasa, and Medicine Master Do were unlucky. Chun Xiang had put all his points into mass, so his movement speed was very slow. Although he had thick skin, against a god-tier boss's attacks, 100,000 HP was no different from 1 HP. In any case, he would die if he touched it. Chun Xiang did not even have time to scream before he was burned to ashes. Although it was Chuanjin's style to abandon their comrades and run, it also depended on who they were dealing with. For Chuanjin's own brothers, it didn't matter if they ran away, everyone could understand each other. As for those who weren't familiar with them, they were used to betray them. No one felt burdened. But it was a little awkward to meet Underworld World, who weren't really brothers but had some friendship with them. After all, they had fought side by side along the way and had developed a sense of class. Even if Chuanjin's group was shameless, it would be a little embarrassing to abandon Underworld World's group and run away by themselves. Seeing Chuanjin's dilemma, Death's left hand waved his hand and said, "Don't worry about us, just fly. It's a pity that we can't fight with you to the end. Everyone, do your best." It was a game, not reality. Death's left hand was an honest person and wouldn't do something like dragging others to die with him. "Okay." Wuji sighed and said, "Brother Left Hand, then I'm sorry. If we are lucky enough to pass the dungeon, we definitely won't take anything that can be used by Underworld World." As he said this, Wuji gestured to Wang Yu and the others. Whoosh! A pair of wings extended from the backs of Wang Yu and the others. With a flap of the wings, they flew into the sky. However, Yang Na didn't fly. Instead, she walked in front of Death's left hand and handed her cloak to him. Seeing the cloak in Yang Na's hands, everyone was stunned. Death's left hand was at a loss and didn't know whether he should take it or not. He panicked and said, How can this be? Chapter 1460. All right, the flames were not far away from them. The situation was urgent, so Grim Reaper's left hand did not waste any more time. He nodded heavily, took the cloak from Yang Na's hands, and put it on. Then, he spread his wings and soared into the sky. At the same time, the flames had also spread to the feet of Yang Na and the people from Hades. Everyone calmly turned into white light. The team of 20 people was reduced by half in just one encounter. Stubborn guy. Eat my flame shadow slash. Seeing that the targets were not completely eliminated, Nephi sneered. He folded his wings and turned into a stream of light, rushing in the direction of everyone at an extremely fast speed. Fly up. Seeing this, Wuji immediately gave the order to the surviving Chuanjin members. Everyone received the order and quickly flew into the sky. Swoosh! Nephius flew past everyone's feet, bringing with him a gust of astral wind that caused everyone to sway. The people from the Quanjin sect were still fine. After all, everyone had been wearing cloaks for a long time. Although they were not as proficient in flying as they were in fighting on the ground, it was still very easy for them to maintain their stability. Everyone adjusted themselves slightly and stood still. Grim Reaper's left hand was more miserable. He had not mastered the essentials of flying for the first time and was blown away by the wind brought by Nephi. F***ck. The miserable Grim Reaper's left hand exclaimed and lost his balance. He turned his head and fell head first to the ground. F***ck. Grim Reaper's left hand was about to cry. Death in the game was not scary, but it was not so simple for Grim Reaper's left hand to die. Yang Na had sacrificed her life to keep the Grim Reaper's left hand alive. If he didn't even survive for 30 seconds before crashing to his death, not only would he lose his EXP and face, but he would also be letting down Yang Na's good intentions. How was he supposed to face Yang Na when he got out of here? What are you shouting for? Just when Grim Reaper's left hand thought he was going to die heroically on the spot, he suddenly heard a familiar voice in his ear. Then, his ankle was grabbed by a big hand, and Grim Reaper's left hand was pulled into the air. Nyogu, the Grim Reaper's left hand, readjusted his body and saw the person who had helped him at the critical moment. He quickly wiped his sweat and thanked Wang Yu. Thank you, thank you. Wang Yu waved his hand and said, You're not used to flying yet, so don't go forward. Stay here and don't move. Just stand still and deal damage. Stand still and attack? Death's left hand said, Is that okay? Standing still and dealing damage was actually Death God's left hand's specialty, but now that he was facing a celestial boss, there was no way he could stand still. Wang Yu nodded and said, All right. We will create opportunities for you to deal damage. Just perform at your normal level. You don't need me to teach you that, right? F***ck. Death's left hand was depressed. Meow, this is looking down on me. I'm a top-notch expert, all right? When I play games, you're still wielding your sword and stick. Do I need you to teach me how to play games? No need. The Grim Reaper's left hand was provoked by Wang Yu, and the aura of an expert was revealed. He proudly said, Go ahead and attack, I guarantee that your arrows will not miss. Wang Yu nodded with satisfaction and said, No wonder Wuji said that you're the most reliable. That's what I wanted to hear. After saying that, Wang Yu spread his wings and flew towards Chuanjin's group. Attack. Although the priority and damage of the mythical beast Nephis was much higher, the cooldown time before he attacked was much longer than when he was in his human form. Nephis revealed his back, revealing it to everyone. Wuji's eyes were vicious and immediately gave the order to attack. Thunderstorm. Without waiting for Nyogu to adjust his body, Mingdu's left hand made a sign and his right hand raised his staff. He used his ultimate skill. Following Mingdu's chant, thunderclouds condensed above Nyoji's head. Lightning fell from the sky and fell on Nyoji's body. It couldn't be helped. The huge body of a boss in beast form was an advantage, but it was also a disadvantage. At this time, Nyoji's body was quite huge. Mingdu didn't even need to predict when to cast spells. He just threw them at his head. Anyway, the target was so big, how could he hit it? Voila! After taking on Mingdu's thunderstorm, Nyoji's body flashed and he was paralyzed. Although it was only a short second, it was enough for Chuanjin's people, who had already rushed forward. Instant hell slash. Hazy space slash. Yama. Shadow chain kick. Ultimate skills flew up one after another, and in this second, they all landed on Nyoji's body. Even Wuji, who was behind him, threw a grenade of holy light to join in the fun. There was strength in numbers. This was definitely not a joke. A series of damage numbers flew up, and the remaining HP on Nyoji's head dropped by 1/5. Ga. Nyogu screamed, and a flame of more than 10 feet suddenly burst out from his back. The flame tongue instantly swept everyone in. F***CK. Nyoji's magic damage was extremely high. This flame directly burned the HP on Yinlao Air's head by half, and Bao San's HP turned red. As for Ming Jian Dao Shui, Bai Ming Yuyu, and to place one's pride, these three thin-skinned unlucky guys, they were burned into white light on the spot. Bang! Seeing that Yinlao Air and Bao San were also about to be burned to death, suddenly only a thunderous sound of a bowstring was heard. A thick arrow flew in an instant and hit the back of Nyoji's head. Duong! Nyoji's head shook slightly, and a mosquito coil symbol appeared above it. He was stunned. Shock arrow. Shock arrow was a rare strong control skill of archers. It could stun the target. At this time, when used by an archer with full strength, the priority was undoubtedly quite high. It actually directly hit 3 seconds of stun, which was even higher than the priority of Mingdu's awakening skill. Damn, this archer with full strength is really terrifying. After Nyogu was stunned, the flame on his back instantly disappeared. Bao San and Yinlao Air both spread their wings and flew into the sky. Seeing this scene, Wuji suddenly remembered that when they first entered the dungeon, 2 random ice spells were able to control the hell lava, but the control effect of the melee profession was not big. He immediately realized that the control resistance mechanism in Rebirth was set up like this. Magic bosses had high resistance to magic control, and physical bosses had high resistance to physical control. As a magic-based boss, Nephius was very resistant to magic crowd control. It was no wonder that Rakshasa and Bright Doe's awakening skills couldn't control him. Instead, it was the Death God's left hand's shock arrow that worked. Second brother, stun her. Everyone else, attack. Thinking of this, Wuji suddenly saw the light. He finally found a way to deal with Nyogu and quickly gave orders to Yinlao Air. After receiving Wuji's orders, while the effect of shock arrow had not disappeared, Yinlao Air retracted his wings, raised his shield, and smashed it on the back of Nyoji's head. Duong! Chapter 1461. 3 seconds. Just as Wuji had predicted, Nephi's resistance to physical control wasn't high. Luckily, Nephi had turned into her phoenix form after being ravaged by Wang Yu. Her huge body had a high hit rate. If she was in her human form, melee classes wouldn't have been able to hit her so easily. 3 seconds wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. It was enough for everyone to complete a wave of damage output. Because everyone's skills were on cooldown, and they had lost 3 powerful attackers, they only managed to reduce Nephi's remaining HP by 1/10. 3-pack. Keep up with the crowd control. Without waiting for the stun effect to disappear, Wuji ordered. 3-pack followed up with a thunder shock strike, and the stun duration was extended by another 3 seconds. Everyone dealt another wave of damage, and her HP dropped by 1/10. Next was Wang Yu. Grandmasters of combat had many crowd control skills. Knee rush and elbow strike were both stun-type crowd control skills. Wang Yu flew in front of Nephi's head, grabbed the feather on Nephi's head, and pulled it down. His knee slammed heavily into Nephi's head. The stun duration was extended by 5 seconds. After the stun effect of knee rush ended, elbow strike followed, and the duration was extended by 2 seconds. At the same time, the cooldown of Death God's left hand's stun arrow had also ended. Everyone was a top-notch expert. Skill cooldown and crowd control were all basic skills. Naturally, they had a good grasp of it. Under the continuous control and coordination of Wang Yu and the others, the stun effect on Nephi formed a cycle. Under the horrified gaze of the inspection team, the stun symbol on Nephi's head didn't disappear until he was beaten to death. Kaboom! With everyone's cooperation, Nephi's HP was finally emptied. Her huge body fell from the sky and landed on the ground full of flames. Looking at Nephi's dead body, everyone let out a long sigh of relief. Damn, he's finally dead. After playing Rebirth for so long, this was the first time they had encountered such a difficult boss. The team of more than 20 people had only 6 people left, and this was under the premise that Wang Yu was with them. Such a heavy loss was definitely unprecedented in the history of Rebirth in Chuanjin. However, considering that their opponent was a god-ranked boss, these losses were worth it. After all, even if the boss was only level 80, ordinary guilds wouldn't be able to defeat it without sacrificing hundreds or even thousands of players. Compared to this, these losses were nothing. According to tradition, the next step was to loot the corpse. Looking at the huge fire phoenix on the ground, no one could hide the excitement in their hearts, but no one stepped forward. This was the first celestial boss that the players had defeated in Rebirth. It was definitely a first kill that transcended the era. Although everyone wanted to loot the corpse, they were still a little hesitant. Looting the boss was a benefit reserved for the player who contributed the most to the team. Obviously, with Wang Yu around, no one dared to say that they contributed the most. After all, 80% of Nephi's HP was taken down by Wang Yu alone. This was a god-ranked boss. If they didn't get something good, they would probably hate themselves for the rest of their lives. As the saying goes, don't be afraid of thieves stealing, but be afraid of thieves remembering. Moreover, these bastards were all ruthless and powerful. So for a moment, everyone was eager to give it a try, but they didn't say anything. Huh? Don't you usually fight to loot the corpse? What's going on today? Seeing that no one was looting the corpse, Wang Yu was surprised. If there's no other way, I'll go. Saying this, Wang Yu was about to go down. Don't. Seeing that Wang Yu was going to loot the boss, everyone panicked. Nyogo, this is a celestial boss, please spare us. Can't we take a screenshot and post it to our friends? Haha. Seeing everyone's panicked faces, Wang Yu laughed. I'm just joking. F***CK. Everyone was furious. If it wasn't for the fact that they couldn't beat Wang Yu, they would probably have rushed up and beaten up Wang Yu. This bastard was too evil. He knew that everyone was excited, but he still made fun of them. If that's the case, I'll go. At this time, Wuji volunteered to go. In terms of contribution, Wuji had been commanding the entire time. Other than Wang Yu, Wuji's contribution was the highest. As for luck, Wuji had always been known as the Lucky Prince, so he was able to take on this responsibility. Thus, everyone voted unanimously and gave Wuji the right to loot the boss. Wuji spread his wings and flew to Nebula's corpse. Just as he was about to touch it, a red light flashed on Nebula's body, and he turned into an egg. The egg was half a foot tall, red in color, and surrounded by flames. It was obviously not an ordinary item. Wuji was shocked by this sudden change. He quickly took out his staff and poked the egg twice. At this time, the red egg flashed and bounced Wuji away. The remaining flames were like iron filings attracted to a magnet, and they were all absorbed by the egg. At the same time, the fire elements from all directions also flowed into the egg at a speed visible to the naked eye. Ka. In the next second, the eggshell cracked. Ga. A small fiery red bird flew out from the eggshell, and with a sway of the wind, it transformed into a fire phoenix of the same size as the one before. Nebulous was actually resurrected. F*CKU. Seeing this scene, Wuji was shocked and quickly flew into the sky. Nebulous squinted his eyes and mocked, "Lowly worm, you want to defeat me? You are all very ambitious." Before he finished speaking, Nebulous spat out a wave of flames at everyone. After fighting with Nebulous for so long, everyone already knew what Nebulous was capable of. Seeing Nebulous open his mouth, Lao Air raised his shield. Wuji used a holy light shield, and everyone hid behind Lao Air. After the flames, Nebulous' attack was stopped. Without waiting for Nebulous to attack again, the Grim Reaper's left hand took a deep breath and took out an arrow from his quiver. He knocked the arrow and released it. Bang! With the sound of the bowstring, the Grim Reaper's left hand's shock arrow hit Nebulous' head. Nebulous was controlled again. The difference was that this time, Nebulous had the intention to dodge. However, his body was too big, and the Grim Reaper's left hand's arrow was also too big, so he couldn't dodge. Nebulous was stunned. Everyone rushed forward and did the same thing. Nebulous' health bar was empty again. Bang! Nebulous landed. Then he turned into an egg, gathered the fire elements, and resurrected. F*CK. At this moment, Wang Yu and the others' feelings were absolutely indescribable with words. This lousy boss was endless. He was simply shameless. Seeing Wang Yu and the others being defeated, everyone in the assessment team smiled. Ah! The bald guy laughed. This is called an immortal bird. It can be reborn, understand? As long as there is fire elements, it can be reborn indefinitely. Let's see how long you can last. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.